It being 6 o'clock, I am calling this meeting to order, the March 19th Committee of Precinct Chairs. And now that we're all in order, I'd like to go through roll call. If you could just, starting with Precinct 1.
Precinct 1, Christine Pratt.
Precinct 2, Matt is not here. Dale, you're up.
Precinct 3, Dale Weber, Precinct 3, where it all began. Thank you.
Precinct 4, Charlie Votrain, Precinct 4.
Precinct 5, I was waiting for you to say.
Waiting for the cue. I mean,
Oh, okay, I gotta give a cue?
Precinct,
Oh, geez.
Precinct
All
5,
right,
Mike
Precinct
Leary.
5, Precinct 6,
Precinct 6, Robert Freeland.
Precinct 7,
Precinct 7, Beth Gregg.
Precinct 8,
Precinct 8, George McKay.
Precinct 9, she said she was going to be late. Precinct 10,
Precinct 10, Alan Costello.
Precinct 11,
Precinct 11, Christopher Merrill.
Precinct 12,
Precinct 12, Pat Adelman.
Precinct 13,
Precinct 13, Jennifer Harris.
Precinct 14,
Precinct 14, Christopher Houle in for Jeanette Kelly. Vice Chair.
Precinct 15, Wrestling Brewster, where it continues. Precinct 16,
B. Delafield.
Precinct 17,
Precinct 17, Joe Hutchinson.
and Precinct 18. Carmen, okay, awesome. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. All right, at this point, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from 2/9 and 2/19? I would entertain a motion.
Motion to accept them.
I have a motion to accept. Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Second.
I have a first and a second. This being a hybrid, we will have to go through the precincts one by one. Precinct 1,
Approve.
Precinct 2. Not here. Precinct 3,
Approved.
Precinct 4. Come on, Charlie.
Agree. I accept the minutes.
Precinct 5,
Abstain.
I lost track.
Precinct 6,
Approved.
Precinct 7,
Approve.
Precinct 8,
Approve.
Precinct 9. She's running late. Precinct 10,
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11,
Precinct 11 approved.
Precinct 12,
Precinct 12, approve.
Precinct 13,
Abstain.
Precinct 14,
Precinct 14, abstain.
Precinct 15, approve. Precinct 16,
Approve.
Precinct 17,
Approved.
and Carmen is not here, Precinct 18. I have multiple people approving and only abstentions, so they pass the
Wrestling?
minutes. Thank you.
Wrestling?
Yes.
I've been waiting in a hold queue. I just got in.
Oh, okay.
So precinct 9 is here, and yes, I approve those minutes.
Oh, thank you. All right. Welcome. All right. Moving on. Warrant articles. First article is the Town Promotional Fund. Lauren Lind?
Good evening. I'm here via Zoom. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, I appreciate you having me. My name is Lauren Lind. I'm the Director of Planning and Development, and I'm here to speak about the fiscal year 27 Town Promotion Fund. It's Article 20 in the 2026 Annual Town Meeting. And so this is an article that comes before town meeting every April. It is for the Plymouth Promotions Fund, which was established in 1993 by Home Rule petition. This act authorizes the town of Plymouth to dedicate a defined portion of the local room occupancy tax to the special Plymouth Promotions Fund. The intent is to provide funding to support tourism-related improvements and promotional activities. Through this act, it also establishes the Visitor Service Board, which is the board responsible for overseeing and maintaining and dispersing funds from the promotion fund. That it is the intention to oversee projects that benefit both residents and visitors and enhance Plymouth's attractiveness as a destination. The funding for fiscal year 27 to be approved for the Town Promotions Fund, it is 45% of the total hotel motel tax that was received last year. So the total of the 45% that would be placed into the Town Promotion Fund this year is $1,336,320. This is approximately a $20,000 decrease from last year's appropriation. The memo that has been provided to the Select Board Advisory and Finance Committee, and I believe that you should have in your information, details what the promotion fund's fixed expenses are, and those are certain contracts that the Visitor Service Board has entertained in previous years for, See Plymouth is in there. And then in addition, by the statute, 10% of the funds, the minimum of 10% each year, has to be for public improvements. The rest can be at the discretion for special events and other requests that come in through the Visitor Service Board grant request process. The following 2 pages of the memo just give you the breakdown of funding, special events, and grants that were received and allocated in the last fiscal year to give you the example of the types of events that come forward and that are funded through the Visitor Service Board. So that concludes the presentation that I have for you, and I'm happy to answer questions as you have them. Thank you.
Any questions from COPC? Mr. Costello?
Not at this time, no.
Oh.
Thank you, though.
All right. Seeing none from the committee, I move it, just like the chair does. We'll have public comment after each of these. Any from the public want to comment? Seeing none, we will move on to Plymouth School Department operational budget. Dr. Campbell. Talk amongst yourselves.
Good evening, everyone. Chris Campbell, Superintendent of Schools, joined by Dr. Adam Blaisdell, our School Business Administrator. So in a moment, we will present the proposed operational budget for FY27, kind of walk through how we built the budget, the challenges we faced doing so, and the decisions we made to ensure our student programming was preserved for the coming year.
Sorry for the delay. Turn my I turned my iPad around, but I don't think the television could.
Yeah, it would be hard to see. Right? It's okay. Appreciate everyone's support through this process too.
Wrestling, I don't have any audio. Is it a technical problem?
Nothing's
or it's
happening
between-
at the moment, Catherine. We're waiting for the presentation.
Okay, thank
So
you.
unless you want to hear me sing, which you don't want to hear, then
Oh,
you're going to have to wait.
There it is.
thanks. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Canty. Appreciate it. Plus. So again, we'll walk you through how we built the FY27 proposed budget, the challenges we faced, and the decisions that we made to preserve student programming. As we do every year, we meet and collaborate with the town manager, with the town leadership in the school committee, along with Dr. Blaisdell and myself, the finance director, and look at the available revenue and resources, those fixed costs and debt services, which decrease the available resources. And for many, many years, at least 10, if not more, sort of the town school allocation has been about 39 to 61% of the remaining revenue sources. So this year, as we built our operational budget, our focus was to try to meet our obligations and priorities with $4.3 million remaining. None of the revenue in this budget was discretionary, I can tell you, in terms of the, building this budget. Again, with the total revenue being about $13.5 million for school and town and $5 million fixed costs with debt services and the remaining $4.3 million for the schools, we had some decisions to make. Costs are rising faster than available resources, as we all know. So we made some very targeted, very strategic decisions to get to the budget that I'm going to present to you in a moment. So again, I want to stress that this is a maintenance budget, and our goal all along was to preserve the current services for our students with the resources that we had. So as we build this budget, and this is what we do every year when we build our budget, we look at our guiding principles, really with the student at the center of our thinking, really trying to maintain class sizes, maintain the programs that we've built over the years, and the current services that we provide our students, try to be as collaborative and transparent as possible, providing information in a variety of venues and media outlets, both through video and in person, and really try to make sure that we focus on equity of services across our schools. And these principles guided every decision and trade-off that we had to make as we built this budget. So how did we get here? How did we arrive at that target? So we exhausted our efficiency strategies before trying to impact any programming that existed. So there are no new initiatives in this budget. I want to stress that. There is absolutely zero new initiatives in this budget. Our goal is to maintain the services that we provide to our students every day as they are this year. We increased our use of revolving funds, bus fees, split fund positions using revolving fees, looked at all non-staff reductions we possibly could make and made them where we could. We analyzed historical spending line by line and really did as much as we could to reduce as many individual lines as possible when building this budget. We have lots of contracts, curriculum, repurchasing curriculum that has to be updated typically every 6 to 10 years, depending on the particular program. That's an obligation that we have, in conditions that we do. So we looked at some of the contracts that we had, whether it was for software or for some of the programs that we have, and we renegotiated some of those to get those down, knowing that we would need them longer term, so to bring some of those costs down. We also level funded many supply lines and looked at projected retirements or taking a chance, anticipating some retirements that we could get some additional savings with those. So, there's some trade-offs with our strategic decisions, but, our budget protects what we feel is most important at this time, is to maintain the current class sizes that we have, really so that our teachers can meet the needs of our kids, to preserve those core academic programs pre-K to 12 that we have built and cherish in our school system, to sustain the student support services, particularly around mental health, counseling, special education. Some of that is mandated services. A lot of that is mandated services, of course. Mental health needs have risen significantly, and our goal is always to maintain those services. We have a lot of grants that support that too, in addition to the operational budget. So when we went through all that, the targets that I mentioned on the last slide, we actually reduced $1.7 million from our original level service budget that our cost center managers developed to get to that that increase that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Again, looking at our revolving funds line by line, our contracts that we could adjust. Again, no new initiatives. Some of these strategies are one-time solutions, not long-term fixes. So we understand that we're going to have to think about that moving forward. But again, our goal is to maintain, the integrity of our programs for our kids. So our proposed FY27 budget for our operational budget is $133,119,875 when you look at the available revenue for the school side. Most costs are tied directly to staffing and services for students. Obviously, we're a people-driven organization that are supporting kids. So the majority of our funds, 78%, are going towards salaries. When you look at our operational budget by object code, this breaks it down even further, so you can see the number of certificated staff. These are the people, anyone with a license, either an administrator or a service provider to students, clerical staff, classified staff, supports that will be in the classroom for a variety of reasons would be included there. Contracted services. When you think of contracted services, this isn't people coming in to do a service for us necessarily. A lot of this is tied up in transportation costs, special education placements. So we do have students with very complex needs that we unfortunately can't service in our district. We service a lot, over 200 students with complex disabilities and self-contained programs, but there are always going to be a group of students when you have a district this large that require something even more substantial. Those are included in contracted services. Supplies and materials, years ago was $3 million. It's below that now. It's a very small fraction of our budget. And other expenses, which could be miscellaneous travel, it could be professional development, and other things that are contractual obligations. I think this slide really highlights for everyone the effort that we made to do what I said at the beginning of this presentation in terms of maintaining our core academic services. So when you look at the percentage of increase by object code, you can see the top section that's sort of highlighted where it says total salaries. These are all of our salary dollars. So our total salary increase is 4.14%. This includes the cost of living adjustment as well as any degree changes. If someone gets a master's degree, a doctorate degree, a second master's degree as an educator, there are inherent step changes to that, or lane changes, as I should say, for that educational attainment, part of the contractual obligation. So that's, that makes up the bulk of this increase. You can see our overall increase is 3.4% over current year. When you look at all the non-salary dollars, and that includes the contracted services that I mentioned before, all the contracts we have, that includes our supplies and materials and other expenses, the total non-salary dollars are up 0.84%, which is an inherent reduction. So to get to that number, we had to do a lot of reductions to get to that number. Again, really trying to look at everything we can, but to maintain the integrity of our staff first and foremost. I know we've had lots of conversations about per pupil expenditures and being above the state average. We are actually below state average slightly. So this it might be hard to see from here, but this is the way that the state has us code our budgets. When you look at any district in the Commonwealth, it's going to be coded the same way. So it's a comparison to comparison. What I have for you to look here at is FY23 and 24. FY24 is the last year that the Department of Education has finalized in terms of publication of those per pupil expenditures, because it takes a while for them to get to this point when the end of year reports go in and they can finalize that. But to kind of essentially break that up so you can see what that is, if you look at the the top section, it's broken up by administrative costs, what's placed in instructional leadership, our teachers, other teacher services, which would be related service providers, anything that's supporting students' academics, professional development, instructional materials and technology, guidance, counselors and testing, pupil services, which includes mental health and transportation, as well as special education, operation and maintenance, which is self-explanatory, and then our insurance programs and those fixed costs, okay? So FY24, you can kind of see what our per pupil expenditure is. If you look down below, you can see total in-district expenditures for both, 23 and 24 in comparison to the state. Total expenditures would include some special education costs there too. So when you look at FY23, we were above our district expenditures in comparison to the state, both in total and in the in-district expenditures. FY24, we're actually below the state in both of those categories. I've referenced, there's a link there too, so if you'd like these slides, you could actually go and see where that came from. So we are doing more with less, but we're trying to, again, maintain the integrity of our program. So we are down about $305 below state average in terms of per pupil expenditure. That's a large number. I'm not going to deny that, but we are below the state average. It is very expensive to educate students. So when you look at a categorical breakdown, and the font's a little small there, so I'll try to kind of highlight that for you. So the top, the first one is teachers, so that is our FY24 per pupil spending in terms of teachers, what we spend per pupil on teachers. So that was $7,647. You can see the state was just over $8,100, almost $8,200. So we're below there. And then pupil services, we're above. That includes not only the mental health, but would also factor in that transportation piece that I've mentioned before. So, two key themes, I think, from this, we try to be leaner in terms of administration. We are lower than the state average by about, $140 or $130 or so. And our benefits are higher. Those fixed costs are higher in Plymouth. So really, again, I think our budget really reflects the choices we've made to maintain students at the center of our thinking. So looking at the detailed budget, this table will show you like administration, instructional leadership, our overall spending is below state average. Where we're above is in pupil services. This will give you a breakdown by dollar value. So you see pupil services, we average about 356 above state average. And again, that includes some of those fixed costs, particularly around transportation. But the other categories were below. So when you think about total being below and you have some that are quite above, that means we're really lean in other areas. And again, I think what we're trying to do is, the education, the instructional core is sort of the largest and most important investment. And we, while we're below in terms of per pupil expenditure, that is our priority as we build our budget. So, 78% of our budget supports direct staffing for students. We prioritize pupil services to support students' well-being, particularly around the mental health. Resources directed to classrooms and student-facing services were really where we invested when we built this budget in terms of prioritizing, maintaining that. Not adding, but just maintenance of those services. Again, maintaining our quality education program, really trying to we're trying to be careful stewards of the taxpayer resources, but there are some challenges will remain. And this is, again, as I said before, we're stable today, but we certainly know that pressure is building and things I think are going to be even more difficult and more challenge for us as we build FY28's budget and have some difficult decisions to make. But we've done that before and we're committed to doing our part again. So I guess, just some of the concerns as we've built this budget and future priorities. Our transportation contract, one area that we intend to focus on and prioritize for us is our special education transportation. A lot of people don't understand sort of the mandates behind that. We transport a lot of students. If students in a program, whether it's in our district or outside, we are legally obligated to transport. It's very expensive. We're also legally obligated to transport students that are homeless and are in foster care. We have contracts for a lot of that, the predictable services, those students that we know are in programs, but a lot of the students that are homeless, we don't know when they're going to be homeless. That sort of evolves over the course of a year, but we have on average about 100 students that are homeless. So we find ourselves in situations where we're contracting with individual vendors at an extraordinary rate because we can't long-term contract with them for that particular student. So our objective is to prioritize that, really try to focus on how can we take some more local control over special education, homeless transportation, those dollars. Where can we kind of build something internally and also cost share with other communities to bring that cost down? So for example, if we have students that are going to a special education program that's in Randolph, there's a lot of communities on Route 3 that may have students going there as well. So how can we sort of take control over there, work with those communities, give them sort of a more reasonable rate because we're all dealing with the same thing, and bring our costs down for our community and also try to help another community along the way. So that's something that our focus and priority as we move forward in the coming year. Expanding need of our early childhood. I believe I mentioned this last year. While we're not seeing an increase in the number of students in preschool, our student population is pretty consistent at 7,000, a little bit over that on occasion. But what we're seeing an increase in is our preschool population that are referred for special education services. So since 2019, we've seen a 41% increase in referrals to our preschool program for students with special education needs, and significant ones, students with mobility issues, dedicated nursing help, students that have some complex medical conditions, students that really require just an array of services that are very, very complex and needy. So this is an area of concern and a priority of ours. It's a mandate. We're obligated once students are 3 years old to educate them in the least restrictive environment, and that includes our preschool program. This is something that we've been working on for several years. Facilities and capital needs, feel very fortunate and appreciative for the capital projects that have been approved by the members here and town meeting in general. We have a lot of old buildings. We're very fortunate to have some beautiful state-of-the-art high schools. I think all of our buildings are very well maintained. We have an outstanding staff of custodians and skilled craftsmen and maintenance workers who support our buildings and really do a remarkable job to maintain our buildings. Our buildings are pristine, but they're old. We have a lot of old buildings. So in terms of capital needs, old buildings, old homes, they require new roofs and other things. So we're looking at creative ways to try to stretch our capital dollars, but that's something that obviously we'll continue to be concerned about. Another area that we are concerned about, and we've gotten a little bit of information on this already, is the uncertainty of state and federal funding, particularly federal funding. We already know that our Title I dollars, so the federal funds, really the majority of them come through title grants. These are entitlement grants for our most vulnerable populations of students, Title I, there's Title IIA, Title III, et cetera. We can anticipate that our title grant will go down by 15% next year, usually $1 million. So we're going to have some reductions there. These are things that we typically don't find out until July. So even after town meeting, when our budget is approved, we have to make shifts with our planning in terms of what we can provide in terms of services to students with those grants. So that's something that concerns us. It certainly hasn't gone up. It's been flat for the last 5 years, but we're anticipating a reduction there as well. And then, as we end next year, we're going to be entering into contract negotiations, town included. So, as I said back in 24, I believe, or 23 when I came here, we just want to make sure that we do right by our staff. But these are the things that sort of, I say keep me up at night, but sometimes they keep me up at night, is meeting these needs. So, but, these aren't hypotheticals. These are sort of imminent things, and, we plan accordingly. But I think the budget that has been presented to you is not just numbers, it reflects our values, and we've really done our due diligence to bring it down. We've done our due diligence to bring it down within the guideline of the town. But every decision we made was tied to what we thought was in the best interest of our kids. And with that, I will stop talking, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Campbell. Any questions from the committee? I see Pat online. Pat, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Dr. Campbell, I noticed that the benefits were higher than the state average. Can you speak to how, I believe the teacher salaries are lower than the state average, but do you use benefits to retain and recruit, or how?
We do
How-
everything we can to retain and recruit. I think, yes, certainly benefits. I think the challenge with benefits these days, though, to be quite honest, for attracting new educators is a lot of our staff are still under their families' plans until they're 26. So we're trying to, we try to attract, I don't want to say at the lower scale, but we're trying to attract newer teachers that want to, make a life in the town of Plymouth and educate students in Plymouth. But those initial 3 to 4 years, many of them aren't taking insurance. It's certainly something that we've used to entice people, and we do, but it's not, it doesn't have the same effect as it did, say, 20 years ago, or 18 years ago when I first came here, I'd say.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Dr. Campbell, just a few questions. So in regards to the student population, has that been increasing or decreasing?
It's actually pretty level. It's been flat, so it's right at 7,000. So I would say that we anticipate it going up. In fact, we have gone through we're going through a feasibility and schematic design, as you know, because the town approved that last town meeting, with MSBA, working with MSBA and their statisticians and looking at new growth and birth projections and all that. They anticipate that our elementary enrollment will continue to go up. We have seen a decline in some parts of our community, not in South Plymouth, I can tell you that. South Elementary is busting at the seams. It's very, very crowded. We've seen a big increase there. We have seen a decrease in some of our smaller elementary schools in North Plymouth. We've seen some people, some of our families that have relocated out of the country as a result of some of the activity here in the States. So, but overall, our enrollment is right about 7,000. It's been consistent there.
Yeah, just a few more follow-ups. So in regards to the programs that the schools offer, are there any underutilized programs currently that students are participating in that could probably be not utilized or cut?
Yeah, we always look at that. So when we look at like scheduling and whatnot, but no, I mean, our vocational technical programs have a waiting list of about 150 students. The other programs that we have are our special education programs. Certainly those are mandates and actually save us money. So when I talk about programs, I would include that as well. Our visual and performing arts courses, there's really nothing that's underutilized. If anything, we have a waiting list for a lot of them.
Okay, and then just one last question. In regards to the vendor contracts, have we worked with other schools, districts, with just partnering and consolidating that and just having like a consortium of just those contracts, like it comes to software? Or?
I don't think we have any contract, not for software, we have not done that, but we've had conversations about transportation. You know, not for the yellow buses, but we've had some initial conversations regarding what could we do for more of the vans, because you can't, we run 3 tiers bus. We need our buses 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the afternoon. So it would be impossible for us to collaborate around that. But when it comes to other forms of transportation, that's really where our focus has been, because that is, I think, where we have the greatest opportunity to save money.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all.
Okay, Pompey, then Catherine.
Yeah, just, okay. Dr. Campbell. Charlie Vautrin.
Excuse me, Charlie.
Okay.
Charlie, we
He
got
knows, he
Pompey,
just likes to tease.
then we get Catherine, then you got you.
Okay. I know
Hey,
that our busing
Stop
costs are.
talking.
Oh, I thought you said it was okay.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you. Mine is more just, I'm interested. We're in a very dangerous time, as you know, and I want to thank you for the work you put in on the budget. And I'm very worried that next year we're going to have to cut services of some sort. But with that in mind, I'm just interested, why do you feel that the special education, we're getting more students, and is that just more people getting identified? Is it a change in population? What is causing that to go up?
I wish I had had the answer to that. All I can tell you is that we have, through early intervention, so we have a lot of students before they even come to our preschools have been identified through Head Start, early intervention services. But locally, here in the town of Plymouth, we have seen a substantial increase in students with very complex profiles. Why? I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that. I just know that they're residing in Plymouth, and we've seen a substantial increase in the last 5 years.
All right, Catherine, then Charlie.
Gotcha.
Hi, Dr. Campbell. Thank you so much for this presentation. I thought this was very solid. I was glad to see that the cost per pupil had gone down below the state average. Representing South Plymouth, I'm constantly concerned about the volumes that you mentioned around South Elementary. I know that Indian Brook is also bursting at the seams. And I think Manomet had a little bit of a reprieve. You know, we had been talking about consolidating some of those schools, and I know you've got the study that you're working on getting the results from. But can you speak to what you're doing in those schools to alleviate some of the pressures that are being faced by the number of students in South Plymouth? Because there is a big growth area right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think we're okay now. We have the space. I want to be clear. We do have the space still in Indian Brook and South Elementary to accommodate the students there. Actually, it's ironically, you go to a Hedge Elementary School, which is much smaller, has a smaller population, and it's harder to accommodate the teaching and learning in that school than it is in the South Elementary, because they don't have a dedicated art room, dedicated music room. Art, music, the gym are all in the gymnasium, which is also a hallway that takes you from one side of the building to the other. So I think, relatively speaking, while the population has increased in the south part of town, the conditions in some of our northern elementary schools are even more challenging. Having said that, I think, we're always looking at where the resources need to go without adding additional resources. So if we need an additional teacher at South Elementary, we're increasing, the number in a class at another location. Again, trying to, use a guideline to be as consistent, as equitable as possible. But I think one of the things that we hope to, I think consolidation, if we could consolidate some of our buildings through a new design. We certainly couldn't close a building now, and we don't have enough space to relocate an entire school to a new location and close it. We just don't have that space. We did a study with AI3 architects looking at educational feasibility before going into the statement of interest with MSBA, and that wouldn't be possible. But if we were to do a rebuild consolidation, we could, with the support of the state, build a consolidated floor plan. So we hope that comes to light.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up, Mr. Brewster, if I could, please.
Go right ahead.
So, you've come before us many times over the years and talked to us about the state of the buildings. And we know that we've got schools that are going to need major rehabilitation. Based on the current budget, are you using this study that you're waiting on in order to understand how soon or how much we could put off some of these major renovations? Because we just don't have the money? Like, what's the plan there?
Yeah,
Because
so-
when you had come before us, I think maybe 3 years ago, we had looked at a chart that you'd shared, which I thought was really insightful. And I thought it said that there was about 5 schools within the next 8 to 10 years that would need either a rebuild or remodel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't think that it's, so I think the report you're referring to is the facilities condition assessment we did in 2021. So
Yes, exactly. Yep.
one of the first capital requests that I made was to do that study, and we analyzed all of our buildings from the roof to the foundation and everything in between to kind of get a sense as we built our 10-year capital plan on how to approach that the most objectively and with sound judgment. But no, I don't think that we're in a situation with, I think if we were to get a new building, we could approach the capital projects in the buildings that we are hopefully reconsidering or replacing with minimal costs and prioritizing other facilities. We've really tried to prioritize the building envelope of all of our buildings, roofs, the brickwork, the windows. Our director of facilities has done a remarkable job in terms of rather than prioritizing one building for one major project, trying to find a way to have roofing and HVAC work that can kind of expand across all of our buildings to work on that maintenance so we can increase the shelf life. Looking at, instead of a complete rebuild or tear down of a roof, looking at a rehabilitation of a roof that can, if eligible, and we catch it early enough, can increase the warranty by 20 years. And some of these projects are a fraction of a roof replacement. So looking at being very strategic about, what the available capital money will be and trying to be very mindful of how we can stretch those dollars across as many buildings as possible, really just prioritizing the envelope of the building. Because you may recall a few years ago, Nathaniel Morton roof was a mess. We had an emergency procurement. We used half, I think it was ESSER funds to supplement the cost of that. The building is in great shape now. But if we didn't do that, we didn't protect the envelope of our building, we would have major deterioration inside, and we would be really looking at a situation where we'd have 550 students and no place to put them because the building wouldn't be suitable. So I think to get to your original question, I think that we're in good shape. I think we're very appreciative of the capital monies that we receive, so long as they're there and we can strategically prioritize, again, the envelope of our buildings, the integrity of our facilities, we can get through.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's super helpful.
Thank you.
That's all for me.
Now, Charlie,
Okay.
you're up.
Dr. Campbell, I know that the busing buildings are really high. In the past, I talked with you about it too, about somehow we could get the school system reimbursed through the state. Is there any progress been made with that?
We keep working on it. So we continue to work with our state legislators to try to get some reform. There are a lot of districts that are in the same situation as us. I think a couple of things. I think the competitive nature of busing is very limited, not only in the Commonwealth, but across the country, which really makes it more expensive. I think the fact that we are not a regional district and don't have the ability to get reimbursement from the state is a problem. So we've approached both of those. We're also working with Representative Badger and others, trying to, and I've been a part of some of these, bills that we're trying to get some language that would be palatable to other parts of the Commonwealth, because we've done it before and it's like, well, there's a bill to reimburse a district that is 50 square miles or more. Well, you can have maybe 2 in the entire Commonwealth. So we've tried to approach it about extraordinary expenses. When we think of like special education, there's a circuit breaker reimbursement. So if you reach a threshold that exceeds a percentage of what a state is, the state is spending, or you spend on special education, you can seek reimbursement. So kind of taking, because my background is in that, where I started. So trying to find a way. There are a lot of districts in Massachusetts, probably at least 10% of the Commonwealth, that are spending well over the per pupil expenditure, the average state per pupil on transportation. So how can we find a bill that would provide sort of a grant fund that districts could pursue when they have extraordinary expenses like that, and showing that, they're doing their due diligence to be efficient, et cetera. So we've gotten some traction with that. We continue to work on bills of that nature. Again, that would open up, I think, the constituents at the State House to kind of support that. So we're still fighting the fight.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Dr. Campbell, thank you. What is the earliest age we're schooling children here in Plymouth today?
3.
3? Are we mandated and required to be schooling preschoolers?
We're mandated for students to receive special education services from age 3 to 22 in some cases.
Okay, so it's only students with special needs?
Correct. We do have, if you see other 3-year-olds in our programs, the parents are tuitioning them in. So we have peer models that the families will pay to be members of the preschool, but our obligation is to our special education students.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. I appreciate your work on the budget, and I appreciate all of the teachers, everybody's efforts on behalf of the students of Plymouth. The question that I have for you is that you had mentioned that some of these strategies are short-term fixes. Thinking about the future, which ones of those are one-time solutions? And
I would say
you're
the supply and
thinking
material,
about-
the supply and material lines. We've cut them, I want to say, the last 4 or 5 years, year after year after year. So it's getting to a point where it's getting very challenging, just being very efficient. Do you want to say more? Dr. Blaisdell could add to this as well, some of the examples.
There's 2 more.
If you could introduce
Oh,
yourself.
sure. I'm Adam Blaise. I'm the school business administrator. There are a couple others. Next year, our bus fee revolving fee line is a little high right now, so we're using quite a few funds from there to help supplement. Those fees won't be available. Those funds won't be available in FY28. And what we've been doing is the past 2 years, we've been split funding some of our custodians with our cafeteria revolving fee as well. We got permission from the state. It's allowed because they're working in our cafeterias. So we can use some of those cafeteria funds to pay for custodians. At the current rate in which we're split funding those custodians, we can't continue to maintain that rate. We're going to have to bring some of those custodians back into the budget. We'll still be able to spend some of those funds out of cafeteria, but not all of them, not at the rate that we're currently doing.
Alan?
Yes, Dr. Campbell, thank you very much. I had just a quick math question from the beginning. You said the school is still maintaining the 61% of the budget, the town budget. That was your effort? Did you achieve that?
6139. Yes.
Now, the 133 doesn't represent 61%. What is the balance? Where is the balance?
I'm not sure.
I think the town budget we're going to vote on in the spring is $325 million. You're at 133. That's not 61%. Where's the balance?
I would have to defer to the finance director, but so kind of getting back to the available revenue, So when we built that budget,
Well, your number right there, 133, 119.
we use we proportionally share.
Unless I'm incorrect, but
That
are we
revenue.
voting on 325? Approximately 324, 325? 344. So it doesn't appear, unless I'm missing something, that that 133 represents 61%.
The available revenue, the available new revenue is split 39/61 proportionately.
Oh, so the budget itself is not just the new revenue?
Our operational budget, so what I build on an annual basis is the
And
annual.
you operate, I've heard that
operational
number in the past several years, 6139,
Right.
6040, whatever it is. But this 133 falls below that. You guys are doing pretty well. I mean, what do you have for, do you have a number, sir?
So basically, when you look at, last year, there was a big discussion in regards to the total education expenses. When you start looking at all, there's certain numbers, certain expenses that are on the town side. Health insurance is on the town, it's held on the town side, even for the school employees. There's also liability insurance that's held on the school side, on the town side, even though it's a school expense. So when you take all of those other expenses, it comes out to be $192 million next year for all school expenses. We only oversee about 133 million of that. The other 60 million of it is held on the town side, but it's basically all the health insurance, the liability insurance.
For the school side?
For
There-
education in general.
Education, yes.
Even
So I-
students that are not in the public schools.
So why wouldn't your budget release reflect those numbers? So we get a true, because if you take that 192 million and divide it by the 7,000 students, the number's quite a bit higher, isn't it right?
But sorry.
But you don't want to use that.
That 192 million does not represent this. It goes beyond the students in our schools. There's also charter students that are not, they're Plymouth residents, Plymouth students that aren't in our schools. We're also providing transportation and education to students that are in charter schools, that there's monies in that side of the
So is
ledger.
it, so it's a
that's
special
included.
category, it's school-related
It's education.
issues that
it's
the town
education.
takes care of?
The
Correct.
chair recognized a former chair of FinCom who might be able to shed light on this.
So as was explained, some of the expenses are borne by the town side for the benefit of the school side, but they're paid by the town side. So you see where the budgets are, where the money is paid out of. So that 195, we wouldn't put it on the school, all on the school side, because it doesn't come out of that cost center. It comes out of the cost center. Member benefits is entirely on the town side, and that's where it comes out of. And when you get an explanation on that particular budget, it is explained that that is the member benefits for town and schools. So you're looking at this budget, which is just about the day-to-day operations of the schools.
But the overall concern that I have, and my neighbors and my, tax-paying neighbors, is the school budget actually is $192 million. Just say that. I don't know why you don't say that.
It is said.
Well, you said it now, but somebody had to ask you.
Well, you didn't ask me, I volunteered.
Well, I know
first,
you
but-
volunteered.
But second of all,
Okay.
the,
This isn't a discussion.
All right, well, I appreciate your answer, but
the
I'll.
town manager's
Debate.
budget presentation, which has been presented separately, includes that breakdown, the 6139, and explains this. But this is being taken on its own tonight, so it looks different, but it is not. They're not hiding something. It's
No,
just
I'm not suggesting they're
putting
hiding
away.
anything. I'm just saying they're not telling you, that's all. That's all right. I've had this question multiple years.
I don't think it's their responsibility to tell you because it's in a different budget.
It's $65 million.
Thank you,
You don't
Mr.
think
Canty.
someone should talk about it?
Someone does.
We are talking about it
Okay,
now, which
this-
is good.
this isn't a
That's why I asked the
debate.
question. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
Is there, Alan, you good or you have more?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
We actually went through that slide with the finance director and the town manager at the joint meeting earlier in the year. When we initially, the 192 million and the breakdown of those funds. But
Anybody
for
else?
this evening,
Oh,
so for this evening, I was just showing the proposed operational budget, which the town meeting members would vote on, that we control, so.
Anybody else from precinct chairs? Joe, yes, sorry about that.
And thank you for all that you do for the town, Dr. Campbell. I was interested in the $49,000 that you cut in supplies and materials, because sometimes when I visit with high school kids who come to Council on Aging, you know, they show up with these Chromebooks that I want to take to the computer museum. So can you characterize where those cuts are coming from?
From all supplies and material lines across the board.
Sorry?
Every supply and material line.
Okay.
Yep, good.
Dr. Campbell, in regards to grants, do we utilize the grant writer here at town for specific?
We've partnered with the grant writer on occasions. We haven't been successful in some, but we write a lot of grants. We actually carry a number of grants that support our budget as well. We've got a competitive capital skills grant we got to support our vocational technical program, two of them actually, one in the amount of $600,000, another one over $200,000 to replace all the technology in our design and visual communications department itself, high school. Everything that was in the new high school was from the original high school, so we never budgeted for that. So we were able to get grants there. So yes, but to your question, we do.
Great, yeah, and I know the Plymouth Education Foundation is one that also helps out.
Foundation's been great. The hospital has been great. We currently have a community health needs grant that we received to support our mental health needs as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I just got a couple things. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, so as I understand it, your reimbursement from the state and the federal government comes out about 26%, right?
Chapter 70?
Yeah. So is that remaining the same or?
It's early to say. We won't find out yet. So we assume level funding when we build the budget. We assume level state aid when we build the budget.
And federal is.
Federal's going down. I can guarantee we've already gotten word that that's going down. So we've already been notified of a 15% cut to one of our federal grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is, all right.
Yep.
All right, I share Mr. Costello's concern. We're in trouble budget-wise, and I think we all realize it. And it's when we're talking about the school budget, I think it's up to town meeting members to, look all this up and find out, where, that's a great question, where, it's 61%, but it's only 133 of 3044, and where all those other, fixed costs are. One of the things, could you talk about, I know you talked about enrollment being level. Can you talk about the national rating for our students? I just need to be able to go back to my constituents and say, that 133 million is well spent. We're doing all these great, schooling, and our students are graduating at a percentage rate. Do you have any numbers like that? National ratings or?
National ratings? No,
Yeah.
I can tell you as we have outstanding schools. We have students that one of the school committee reps got into Tufts yesterday, and or Monday, and she
Okay.
told us. We have students that are going to, the part that I have a hard time with is how we evaluate our students and say what makes an excellent school. We can use all kinds of metrics. There are some metrics that the state got rid of one metric. So MCAS doesn't count as a graduation requirement. So it's not a metric that's being used really in that case because it doesn't it's not required. I say we measure our schools by the outstanding programs that we have, the opportunities that our kids have, our college and career persistence that we have 97% plus of our students that are in our vocational programs that are positively placed upon graduation. There's a lot of data that I could share that demonstrates that we have an outstanding school system, in my opinion. And so I'm happy to, you know, if there's any particular kind of data points that you're referring to, I'm happy to share those. But as a wife, you know, a resident of 26 years who's owned 3 children went through the school system, public education, I feel confident that we have an outstanding system.
Right, and I
And I think
understand
the
that.
conditions for some of our students aren't necessarily the same, and there's different struggles that they have. And so to measure one individual in comparison to another one who may have different conditions isn't an equitable way to do that. But I'm happy to share any particular data points that you may be questioning.
I'm just saying that as we look at society, we're looking at our children not getting great educations, and we have concerns. I just need to go and say, hey, look, we've got a great school system. If I had backup, it'd be easier for me to go and say, this is why our budget is this way. You know, I know I ask you every year these questions, but could you talk a little bit about, so I know last year the teacher's contract came after the budget, so we had a whole bunch of trouble with that.
We're in year 2 of our teacher's contract.
Okay, so it was 2 years ago that happened. Okay, all right, so
In
we
23,
don't
are you
have to
referring
worry about that?
23? In 23, we reduced 29 positions in order to settle our contracts.
Okay,
We did that strategically.
okay,
Again,
yep,
I think at this meeting at that time, or a similar meeting at that time several years ago, I had concerns about the available revenue to fairly negotiate contracts. We have dealt with, as other communities have, a decline in candidates for jobs. In 2008, I can give you an example. In 2008, we would have 350 applicants for an elementary teaching position. Fast forward to 2023, when we did this comparison, we'd get 10.
Yep.
At the secondary level, we get single digits applicants. And when you looked at where we were regionally, I'm not talking North Shore, Boston, Wellesley, regionally, our surrounding communities, we were underpaying our long-term teachers who have been here for, you know, who are at the top, you know, been here at least 12 years, anywhere from $6,000 to $13,000 a year. So I knew that, you know, they averaged over five contracts, a 1.7% increase over the course of that contract, well below inflation, right? So I knew that we knew there was no money for that. We did not want to come to town meeting and ask for more money. That's not what we did. What we did is we got together with our administrators and made with a fine scalpel and looked at how we could eliminate positions when they became available, so that all but one individual who ended up moving was able to get another job that opened up before the next school year. So we didn't have any unemployment either. So we were very mindful, and then we freed that money up to put towards our contracts. So we tried to address that, and I think the association were very appreciative that we approached it that way, because we were thoughtful of the employees, but also trying to, again, understand the realities that we're talking about tonight in terms of the fiscal concern. So we didn't ask for more money.
no, and I appreciate that, and the reason I'm bringing these things up is I really think that we're going to have to make some difficult decisions in the future. And I think that we strategically and budgetarily need to start thinking about those things. Transportation, can you talk a little bit about transportation, what we've tried to do? I know that we're talking about buses, and we're talking about, you know, combining forces. I know that it's one of your biggest expenses. Can you talk about what we've been trying to do?
Sure. So we went out, we've gone out to bid, and we've also done a transportation study. I don't think, for fiscal reasons and operational reasons that taking over the yellow buses is going to actually save us money in the long run. Where there may be some inherent savings in year one, but what will ultimately happen is those fixed costs that we talk about that don't sit on our side, but are factored into what's available. Keep in mind, even though that money, and that's in our, when you get our town meeting members get our budget book, that $190 million is included in there. We reference it there, not for tonight because we're trying to go over what we're proposing for next year, but we do mention that. But my concern with doing that is that fixed cost is going to go up because we have bus drivers that will be 30 plus hours, and there's going to be this inherent cost with that. So I don't think it will save us money. What we're focused on now, as I mentioned before, is looking at the vans and those individual drives and small group drives that we have for our students that are homeless, that are at special education and whatnot, because we can do that in a very strategic, you don't have to do it all at once, so we can guarantee the quality of services because we're obligated to make sure that that service is set up on day one. If a student is in a program, we have to transport them. If they're homeless and we have to transport them back to their school of origin, we have to do that immediately by law. So we have to fall within the law, and we want to make sure that we do that. But we can do it strategically, looking at our existing operational budget and take some of those funds to invest in additional vans, hire some drivers, reduce that cost share with other communities. So that's the approach that we're taking because we feel when we're spending, it's $11 million, but there's 3.6 of that is not yellow buses. It's the other stuff. And I think we can save some significant money there if we look at that strategically. So those are the areas that we're focusing on.
All right, thank you. Just lastly, I really think that some of the tough decisions we're going to have to make, we really need to start looking at combining forces with the school in different areas. And I think that strategically, it's smart to look at.
Combining forces with the school, you mean the town?
The town and the school,
yeah.
yeah, combining forces. We have duplication that we could save money on. All right, unless there's anything else from the committee, I would open it up to public comment. Does anybody have public comment? Please announce yourself.
I'm Don Williams. I'm the Vice Chair of Precinct 8. I have come to a number of these presentations from the school board, and I've been impressed by the process that's been used to try to keep the costs down. I wanted to register myself as a proponent of education, and in doing so, I'd like to ask Dr. Campbell if he has any suggestions about what we might do for new initiatives when we get the wherewithal to do that. Because in industry, we believed in continuous improvement. As the world changes, we need to improve to keep up with it. And it's been a number of years now that the new initiatives have not gotten any funding. And I'm a little disturbed by that, and I'd like to give Dr. Campbell a chance to let everybody know what he might do if he had some money for new initiatives.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you. Try to answer that. I haven't had the luxury of really thinking about that, and it comes some time. I think, early, if I could do one thing, so I was very fortunate. Again, we haven't had a new initiative, and I mean this in all sincerity, since 2017. No, 2016. 2016, 17, when I was assistant superintendent, I did a feasibility study for full-day kindergarten because we were one of 28% of the communities that didn't have it. And I felt very fortunate that the study was supported and demonstrated that if we invest now, we'll get additional Chapter 70 money, and we did. The next year, we got over $1 million because half-time students were now full-time students. So what I would really look at is early education. I know we talked about 3-year-olds. It's not a mandate, but I think the earlier we can get students in, I think wraparound services, I think expanding opportunities for our most vulnerable population is something that I would always would focus on. We've had to make some reductions. Our summer programs have been cut. The grants that I mentioned are just going to make it more challenging. So again, when we look at, not everyone is starting on first base. We have students that are really struggling, families that are really struggling. That's one thing that has increased substantially in my 18 years here. So we have an amazing staff that do amazing things, but if we could have wraparound services in an ideal world, if we could have universal preschool, I think we would save money for our community in the long run if we could, kind of level the playing field for those that really struggle most. So that would be what comes to mind initially.
Any other public comment? Please announce your name.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Dugan, and I'm a former school board member in New Jersey. I haven't been a school board member in over 22, 3, 4 years now, but some of these things that Dr. Campbell, come on over, Dr. Campbell, is talking about coordinating with other communities as far as transportation for those children with those special needs is extremely important thing to do. I mean, we did this I served, in addition to being on an elementary board and then a junior senior high school board, I served on an educational services commission, which is how New Jersey meets the needs of those students with the most needy IEPs and those very special students. And we coordinated those busing transportations from a very rural county in northwestern New Jersey. And we did pick up students along the way. But we also started a program to meet the needs of our students in the preschool, like in the 3-year-olds, the Child Find program. We started our own program in our school, which it sounds like you do that already. And but maybe because of the size of our district and maybe because of the numbers of the students that you have, you could start offering some of those services. I don't know enough about the system here in Massachusetts because I didn't raise my children here. I didn't serve as a school board member here, but maybe bring some of those services home here and then take in students from like the Cape or from Carver or from those surrounding communities, because these children spend a lot of time on the bus. And it's better for their families too, because they're bused from home, they're bused to to schools, and it's an extremely long day for these students, very, very long day, and a lot of these students are in school from the age of 3 until they turn 22. One of the other questions I had, you briefly mentioned that you had a decline in the student population in North Plymouth because those students moved home to their native countries, yes. Do you have a figure as to what it costs to educate those students compared to the rest of your student population because of the additional services that they need, like ESL, English as a second language?
Sure. So we have, for the entire district, 13 ESL teachers. So and that's for well over 350 students that are receiving services. So, when you look at like per pupil, it's not a significant expense. I think with technology now too, and the way that it's evolved, we're able to do a lot of translation and interpretive services at a very, inexpensive manner, because a lot of it comes with the programs that we already use. Talking Points is one that will immediately allow you to communicate with the family that may speak another language in their native language, and then they can speak in their language and you get it back in English if you're an English speaker. So I think that's something, I don't have a number off the top of my head, but that's the number of staff that we have for all of our students that are English language learners. Regarding the preschool and the programmings that you mentioned, I appreciate that, and that's something that we have approximately 210 students that we provide programs pre-K, no, not K to 22 in our districts. in addition to our preschool programs. And so we do a lot of comprehensive programs for students where we have the need. We have tuitioned in students from other communities as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further public comment? Please announce yourself.
Hi, my name is Lori Fitzpatrick, and I live in Precinct 2, and I'm an employee of the Plymouth Public Schools. And I didn't know that this presentation was going to be here tonight, but this is very near and dear to my heart. I've worked for Plymouth going on 20 years, and I'm an occupational therapist, so I work in the classrooms that Dr. Campbell is referring to, the Intensive Learning Center at elementary school, which is children with severe multiple impairments. Their needs are great. I can just tell you, in the past few years, we have done much more with much less for these students. Right now, we have 3 classrooms housed at Federal Furnace, busting at the seams for these students that are very, very needy. And I can also attest to, the supplies. Again, doing much more with much less. As a professional, I spend a lot of my own money, which I'm happy to do for my students. I can also speak to the other, educators in that program that do the same. In some cases, it's, and I also am a parent of a boy who is at Plymouth North High School, and I can speak to the education. And as an educator, I can speak to what we do more with less is extraordinary, in my opinion. Our hearts are there for the children, and that population is growing. I can tell you we're getting 5 more students into that program with 3 classrooms with only 1 student going on to the 5th grade. So how we're going to do that is a big concern of ours for our students, to be able to give them the quality special education that they deserve and that we're mandated by the state to give. So I just wanted to, as an educator and as a medical professional working within the public school system, just to give you that perspective.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
If I just end with one thing, we talk about the quality of our education and the programming and kind of speaking to constituents about is the investment there. I would personally welcome, and I've done this on multiple occasions, to bring anyone through our schools, talk to our amazing students, talk to our amazing teachers, see the education that this town is investing in our students personally. I think that's the best way to see if you have a quality program that's worth investing, and I would welcome that and invite anyone to do that at any time. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we've got Article 35, Military Service. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the COPC having me here tonight. My name is Dave Golden. I'm the chair of the Plymouth Select Board. I apologize. I've got some kind of allergy thing going on, so if I'm a little hoarse and nasally, I just ask that you bear with me. I'm here tonight to talk about Article 35. It's an article relative to military service for the town of Plymouth. Essentially, what I'm asking town meeting to do is to adopt Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59. This is a section of the general law that allows the town to grant up to 40 days of paid military time for folks who are serving in the National Guard or in the reserves. It allows them to take that time without having to utilize their regular remuneration through paid time off, vacation, things like that. Currently, when our employees serve in the National Guard or the reserves, the town pays the difference between what the salary they would get if they're working here in Town Hall and what the salary is at their military training. So if you're in the Army National Guard for Massachusetts, you go and you serve a weekend or you do a 2-week drill or whatever it is. If your pay for that time would have been $1,000 in the town of Plymouth, and I'm just using round numbers, this is all theoretical. If your pay was $1,000 in Plymouth and your pay during your military time, the pay that you receive from the National Guard is $500, Plymouth is only paying that $500 difference. This would allow folks to get their full pay from the town of Plymouth without having to use their vacation time, which is what they currently would have to do. The town already appropriates for the full annual salaries of these employees, so it doesn't change the budgeting process. It doesn't create any additional salary obligations. I had been saying this is budget neutral. Mr. Canty pointed out in our select board meeting that this would actually result in future years, there would be less money in free cash, because what happens right now is that delta between what you would earn in town hall and what you earn at your military training does fall to free cash, unless you take your vacation time, at which point it wouldn't fall to free cash. I don't have the final number from the finance department yet, but the estimate that I was given was that annually it would only result in about a $5,000 difference in free cash. So it's pretty infinitesimally small compared to, I think we were at 23 million in free cash this year. So it's a much smaller percentage of that. I think you folks have my memo, which I sent to the Select Board and the Advisory and Finance Committee. It says that there are 8 employees who qualify, but at the time, if this passes town meeting, it will actually only be 7 employees. All of them are members of the fire department. The town manager himself would qualify for this, but he's going to actually retire prior to this being enacted. He's going to retire from his military service, not from the town of Plymouth. So he wouldn't be a beneficiary of this. You know, just to sum it up, I think these individuals provide an extraordinary service for the country and for the town, and I want to really show our appreciation for their efforts in uniform. Happy to take any questions you folks might have.
Any questions from the committee?
I will add, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, this was unanimously supported by both the Select Board and the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Any questions online? Any public comment? Thank you, Mr. Golden.
You're welcome. I have been asked by Mr. Bolton to let you know that he is in another meeting. I will go back to that meeting and let him know that he's supposed to be up after me. But I would advise you folks to move on in your agenda until he gets down. Thank you.
If it is all right with the committee, we will switch Article 23 with Article 36. Anybody got a problem with it? Awesome. Then we will go on to Article 36, the Billington seaweed treatment. Christy Haynes.
Hi, I'm on Zoom. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. My apologies for not being there in person, but I am Christy, and on behalf of the Billington Sea Townbrook Association, we're requesting the allocation of $28,492.32 towards the weed management program here at Billington Sea. It is a 20-year maintenance program that we've had implemented. The dollar amount there represents the 45% property ownership by the town, with the other 55% that is paid through contributions and dues from the other residents. The maintenance program, as I mentioned, it has been in place for quite some time. It consists of water testing that the association does every year. We monitor for fish kill, weed growth, and then every 6 to 7 years have done an herbicide treatment to stop or the invasive weeds that are growing. The treatments that we've done before, we've done 2. So the upcoming one would be our 3rd, and we would be using the same herbicide treatment that has been approved by Conservation and Heritage previously, and that's called Sonar. With Sonar, there's no concern for usability of the pond afterwards. It's actually used in drinking water quite often and reservoirs. And it can be applied up to 25 parts per billion. We only do 15 parts per billion, so there's no, there's negligible risk, they say. It has been 6 to 7 years between treatments, which is the expected time frame. We are going on year 8, and we're really seeing the need for the treatment to be done now. In September of 24, we had a weed assessment done, and they were able to, observe all of the invasive species that are starting to take back over in the water. And if we don't treat it now, if we don't continue that management program, we'll start to see a lot of negative impacts on the aquatic life, on the plants, and also the usability of the pond. So that is the general information there. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that that might come up.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Yep.
Just a quick question in regards to grants or matching grants. Has there been any research into that, especially with like USDA?
There hasn't been currently, there has been in the past, and it was before my time, so I don't have the exact information, but it had been researched in the past, and there weren't grants that we had qualified at that time for.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, if this is not done, then what would be the ramifications further downstream, so to speak?
Sure. So right now we're able to maintain the quality of the water right now. If we don't treat for the weed, which is called fanwort, that's the invasive species that we're treating for. If we don't manage it, then it'll eventually spread throughout the entire pond. Right now, it's primarily in what's called the Western Basin, but it will continue to spread. And this weed spreads by fragmentation. So boats, swimmers, kayakers, anytime people are going through it, it's breaking off, and then it can grow more. It will eventually kill off native species. And as that happens, where the oxygen levels will drop, then we start to see fish kills, and so that'll, of course, impact the entire health of the pond.
Yes. Yep, online. Yes. Sorry, Pat. Yes.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Okay.
There you
thank
go.
you. Thank you for the information. Can you tell me if David Gould has said anything about this?
So I personally haven't spoken with David. I don't know if I can, Mike Leary, if you're there. I know Mike's had a lot of conversations with David in the past, but I personally have not been in contact with him.
Thank you.
You-
Wrestling, can I ask Mike?
Yes, through me, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, into what part do you question him? Yeah, Dave and I had always Dave's been on board with all of these, over the years. This, we had cut down the nutrients, we had, brought it back to a mesotrophic state, it wasn't a eutrophic. We use the product she's talking about is, Sonar. It's a fluoridone is its main ingredient. There's no risk to the humans. It actually can be administered at 25 per parts per billion right at the point of intake of a public water supply. So we treat it 15 it gives us two things, liability, but it also gives us a control of what weeds it actually kills. So at 15 parts per billion, it only kills the leafy ones and doesn't affect the basal type. So there's been a lot, David's been on board with this, we've dealt with this over the years for a long time. 30
Thank you.
years, I think.
You all set, Pat? Awesome. Any other questions? Any public comment? Thank you very much. Mr.
Thank you. I
Bulletin, have
appreciate
you
your
caught your
time.
breath? Mr. Bulletin with Article 23.
Thank you. Do we have a presentation up for you? We have the slides. It should have been. Did Patrick not send you the slides? I don't believe it is. That's okay. We're going to do this without the slides. It's not as elucidating as others would, but
Pretend you're in front of, a courtroom.
I usually have slides. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Bulletin here tonight on behalf of the Open Space Committee. The Open Space Committee is asking town meeting in Article 23 to transfer 9 former tax title parcels into conservation for open space purposes. Now, you've already seen most of these parcels last year. We came before you and presented those. However, we ended up withdrawing the article because of some technical difficulties in descriptions of those properties. One, for instance, didn't have the correct section, block, and lot number from the zoning map because it was never assigned one, and then a new one was assigned. For others, they were changed through the course of things. We wanted to make sure we got the details right. So that's what we're doing. We're putting those properties back up as well as 3 new ones. We're also asking town meeting to authorize a total expenditure of $12,500 for legal fees and recording fees to make sure that as we move these things forward, we can actually record them properly. We have a backlog of hundreds of properties, which we did not do this for. So town meeting, in its wisdom, accepted the request for properties to be transferred into conservation, and then they were never recorded because we didn't put the money in to do it. So now, part of our new process, every time we do this, we are going to be asking for the funds to do it. So it's 9 properties. It's a total of 5 transactions, however. Some of these properties are lumped together because they are adjacent properties. They're just separate parcel numbers, but it's 5 transactions, $2,500 a piece. That's what it'll cost. Obviously, if it costs anything less, we'll go ahead and make sure that that money gets back to the town. Let's see. One other thing that I want to express, and again, this article has already been before the Select Board and FinCom and received unanimous support. One thing I want to explain, because people question, where do these properties come from? How do we assess them? Why are they going to open space as opposed to something else? So all of these properties are former tax title properties. The town has taken these as tax foreclosures. When that happens, the properties are put on a list and circulated to all town departments as well as several of its other bodies like the Affordable Housing Trust and other committees. And people are asked, do you have an interest in this property? So for example, DPW is asked, do you have an interest in this property as a drainage area, as a storage area for some purpose? Affordable Housing Trust is asked, do you think this is suitable for affordable housing? Open Space is asked, do you think this is appropriate for open space or conservation? Parks and Recreation is asked, do you think this should actually be a park that's maintained or managed by the town? So every department and committee gets its say regarding this. And each of these properties went through that process, and the only group that felt that they were useful was the Open Space Committee, which felt that they were useful for conservation. If somebody else had stepped up and said, nope, we think this is appropriate for something else, that takes priority. Conservation is the last step. It's one that, again, if multiple bodies say, I'd like it for this, people will consider that, and maybe there might be an instance in which someone says, well, yeah, we thought this might be good for drainage, but it's really not that essential. Move it to open space. That may happen, but everybody gets the priority that they deserve in terms of giving their input. In these instances, these were only requested as open space. Nobody else expressed an interest. So you're not saying, oh, are we doing this instead of? I promise you nobody else said, we want this alternatively. So quickly, I want to go through the parcels. First parcel is one on Mountain Road. It's a roughly 10-acre parcel that was foreclosed on in 2003. It's the largest of our parcels that we're suggesting. Now, this parcel was foreclosed on during a real estate upswing in Plymouth at a time when developers were looking for any large piece of property that they could develop. Nonetheless, this went into foreclosure. Why? Well, if you look at the property, it's wildly varying in its topography. It up, down, and it's subject to a town drainage easement. We already have a town drainage easement. It makes building on this parcel, I never use the word impossible, but let's just say highly, highly prohibitive, such that nobody in the middle of a building boom wanted to undertake it. As a result, it ended up in foreclosure, and the town took it. Now, it took it in 2003. The date is important. In 2023, the state changed its law regarding tax foreclosure properties. Prior to that time, if the town foreclosed on a property, it took the property in exchange for what was owed, and that was it. After 2023, there was a 2-year retroactive period to 2021. Now, if we take a tax title property, we have to pay the remaining value, the equity, if you will, of that property to the property owner. So if someone owes us $50,000 in back taxes, we foreclose, we take the $50,000 in back taxes plus legal fees and whatever other fees and expenses we've incurred, and then we have to give the remaining value of that property back to the property owner. So if we sell the property, whatever the excess is, goes to the property owner. If we decide we want to keep the property, we then have to go through a more elaborate series of events where we have to get appraisals, reviews, private sale. It has to go to a licensed broker or realtor first for a period of a year. If it doesn't sell within that year, we can then go to auction, but we can't auction it for less than 10% off of what the appraised value is. It's a very, very lengthy process. And at the end, we still have to give all the money back to the property owner. So it will make future tax title foreclosures very, very difficult for the town, especially for properties that we wish to keep, because under those circumstances, at the time we go and foreclose, we will also have to have the money set aside for the payment of any equity. None of these properties fall within that. So something that you will not have to worry about as far as this goes. But if people ask you, understand that applies to 2021 and onward. So the real value of the Mountain Road property is that it serves as a public access way to an additional 180 acres of existing open space. It's a great little conduit that gives people access from public way into our open space, something we already have preserved. That's why this particular transfer was specifically supported by David Gould, Director of Department of Energy and Environment. Next property I'm going to talk about is Beaver Dam. It's located right next to the Foothills Preserve. It's a small strip of 3 parcels. It was never suitable for development because it's a very narrow piece of property. Immediately behind it is an unpaved road that the town uses as access to a town-owned storage equipment barn. It really doesn't serve any value. It's got a very small assessed value. Its benefit to the town, of course, is that it continues to serve as a buffer from Beaver Dam Road to the Foothills Preserve. It just cuts down on some of the noise and the traffic and provides some tree cover for that area, to where the Foothills, of course, is a very, very large open space. Those who haven't had a chance to walk it instead are over there looking through the woods at Tidmarsh, come across the street. It's a lovely little spot. Our next property is property off of Bourne Road and Spinnaker Drive. When approving subdivisions, one of the things that the planning department and the planning board looks to do is prevent urban sprawl by trying to preserve some measure of open space, particularly where that open space provides access to scenic or significant areas. For example, access to ponds. These lots were originally designed for exactly that purpose. They were set aside as part of a subdivision for that subdivision to keep some measure of open space, community open space. And then, as is often the case, the association decides they really didn't want to pay their tax bill. And so the properties came to the town. Now that they're back in town ownership, we have the opportunity to ensure that they're preserved for their intended purpose, that being access to the pond and open space within the community. Again, no other purpose for them beyond that. Our next property is off of Blueberry Road. These are 2 parcels that are adjacent to conservation and marshlands and themselves contain significant wetlands. Their real value is to serve as a buffer protecting wildlife habitat. This is an area of critical concern for wildlife. And we're looking to just simply expand a marshland area protection for that particular area. We have the next one is Bourne Road right on Rocky Pond. This is a 5-acre parcel, but it's rather unusual in that it is bisected by Little Rocky Pond. In fact, most of the parcel itself is technically underwater. Leave it to us to create an underwater parcel. I'm not really sure how that works, but nonetheless, this is a permanent pond wetland with a parcel running underneath it. I think given those circumstances, open space is really the only value for it, and so we might as well move it to where it belongs so that it can be properly overseen and maintained. And that, in a nutshell, is my presentation. I don't think it would have been any longer if I had the slides, other than you'd have had pictures of what I was talking about. But beyond that, on behalf of the Open Space Committee, I want to thank you for your attention, for your consideration, and of course, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the committee?
I have to look. I believe that is it. That's the one. But as I said, it's a very high value for something that we actually can't figure out how anybody else would use. Yeah. And that goes all the way down to the pond itself, so.
Pat?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I appreciated how you explained all those parcels. The Skylark Road parcels, you said it would give access to the pond. Is that just for residents of that neighborhood, or is it for public access?
Well, it would be public access, but I don't know that we have a plan as is yet to create a trailhead for parking. So that would be something that, again, once moved to conservation, we'd be able to look at. Right now, because it sits as just a tax title parcel under the select board, there's no real way to assess that. When it's moved over to conservation, that creates some additional funding opportunities for us to do things such as create 3-4 parking space trailheads and a pathway. It allows, of course, then the Trails Working Group of the Open Space Committee to do what it does best, which is survey the land and create a proper trail to give safe access to the community, again, as a gateway into further space.
Thank you.
Mr. Weber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bolton, how did it come to be that we're hearing from you tonight? Is there not a chairman of the Open Space Committee?
There is a chairman of the Open Space Committee, but the chair asked me to do this because I just love appearing before you.
I know you do. I'm just curious. We've seen open space people at our precinct before. I was just wondering if.
And you will see more of them again.
All right.
But tonight, I was asked to do this I am a member, permanent member of the Open Space Committee.
Thank you, sir.
So as a committee member, I came.
I just want, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to say on behalf of one of my constituents who also happens to be my husband, I'm very happy to know that you're going to be considering these, or that these will be included, the 12,500, whatever the tax title fees are going to be in the future. That will be part of the package that we look at in town meeting, because to him, this looked kind of inefficient.
It has been an inefficient process, and, shame on us as a town for not catching this sooner, but it was caught. It was brought to the Open Space Committee's attention, which was also brought to the town manager's attention, and we went through it, and sure enough, we weren't doing what we should have been doing. Now, just to be clear, that does not mean that the parcels that were transferred by town meeting into conservation have lost their protection. They still have that protection. The recording is a belt and suspenders, if you will. It's just to make sure that in the future, if something happens and there's ever a question, someone tries to, sell the Brooklyn Bridge, that someone tries to sell a parcel that they don't own, it means that when you go to the registry, there's something there that says, nope, you can't do that.
Mr. Costello?
Well, that was actually one of my questions, was the ramifications of all the properties that have not been properly recorded. And you say there's nothing imminent, but it could potentially be an issue if someone were to
I've
make a
gone
move?
so I've gone through the list along with many others. We've all gone through it, and the vast majority of those parcels are 150 square feet somewhere. I mean,
Right, they're small.
nothing-
I was told they were
nothing,
small.
Nothing that you couldn't put an old telephone booth on it. But with respect to anything of any substantial size, that was the first thing that we did, was we looked at those parcels, separated those out, and that was the first item that went to town meeting last year, I believe. Town meeting voted on a certain amount of money to do that. So we made sure that those parcels, the ones that someone could potentially get their hands on and try and do something with, those were the first ones to receive protection. Ultimately, whether we do all of the parcels, it's probably not worth a lot of some of them, but certainly anything that we feel there's any potential concern, we're going to certainly try and make sure that that gets done, and done as efficiently as possible.
Okay, very good. And my second question, if I might, Mr. Chairman. Some of these parcels that we're speaking about in this town meeting, the 9 parcels, and you might have touched on this when you said there was a change in the law, but you said everyone had a crack at them. Was there ever any thought to put them on the open market for sale? Some of these look like they could creatively be used as a decent buildable lot.
Well, and again, most of them cannot.
Most of them cannot,
Most
I
of them-
agree with that.
Almost all of them. Most of them cannot. The town does have a policy. And this is a select board created policy, which says that we do not take existing open space. If something has never been developed, we don't sell it for development. That's a town policy. If we take a tax title property that already has a structure on it or has been developed, has been cleared, then we'll look at that for potential sale. So if you're talking about some of these parcels, I can certainly say that before foreclosure happened on some of these that are in neighborhoods, the immediate neighbors were certainly given the opportunity to purchase them prior to foreclosure. Just add to your own lot, create that space, and no one took them up on it.
And just quickly, what was the ballpark, what was the total taxes these 9 properties paid when they were actively paying taxes? I mean, how much is coming off the tax roll, right? Would you guess?
Right now, nothing's
Nothing
coming
is
off the
right
tax
now.
roll because they've been taken by tax, so the town owns them. So
But in
this
their,
doesn't
but in their
change that.
best days, they were generating some tax revenue, I assume.
Some of them were, again, some of these were, again, for example, the 3 properties on Beaver Dam Road right now are total assessed at about $43,000. So a couple $100 a year.
All right, thank you.
You had a follow?
Yep. So in regards to the 1,000 acres, I know Mass Development was engaged probably about 15 years ago now, when we're looking at developing that. I think that was assumed with Hollywood East, but that had failed. But anywho, with that now being with Mass Development doing the title conveyance, and where does that currently stand? Because now with the current laws change, and I know that's going to be pristine land to develop at some point in the future for the town, so I'd kind of be curious to hear more on that.
That would be a situation, as I understand it, and I know that's something the select board is in the process continuing to work with the state on negotiations. The ultimate goal was to have the state take over the responsibility for that. So we would transfer that, we would sell that land to the state, and the state would then go ahead and take over. Because the state has the ability more efficiently than we do to do that, even if they wanted as an eminent domain process. They can take it for open space and leave it that way. And their ability to do so and the cost for them to do so is far less than if the town were to try and do that on a parcel by parcel basis. They could do it as a broad sweep for an entire area. We don't have that same ability, unfortunately. So rather than argue over, it's funny, I've seen the plot there, and every now and then when you look, you all of a sudden see one green parcel, meaning that's one that people still are paying their taxes on. So you have parcels that are in there. We actually have a member of the Open Space Committee whose family owns one of those parcels in there, and they visit it occasionally and they use it to enjoy nature. And she actually wants to create a native plant nursery on the site if she can. So there are still small groups of people who maintain those. So taking the entire thing from a town standpoint doesn't make sense. Ultimately, it is one of the best areas for large-scale preservation still left in town. And hopefully that's something we can come to agreement with the state on.
Yeah, Steve, these, when these are being transferred, are they gonna be under the control of conservation, or are they gonna have actual CRs on them?
Actual CRs on them. They will be transferred, but they will also have
Have a
CRs.
CR.
That's what the recording is. It's not just the transfer, but also to make sure that the CR itself is recorded. So again, the limits in terms of what can be done to them in the future, as far as any infrastructure placed on it, would also be limited. Again, the one that the town already has drainage easement on would be transferred subject to the easement. But beyond that, these would be suitable to create as preserve areas or other similar types of open space park areas.
Yeah, and to your question, Alan, is the town was doing a lot of deed restrictions. So in other words, we had taken them back in taxes, sold them some highland property, let's say, and we had sold them, but with a deed restriction, they couldn't be built. So we've run into one of them presently that was, basically wants to put a horse stable on it because they have an exemption. So, but they did for quite a few years, they were putting deed restrictions on them.
Any other questions from the committee? Any public comment? Thank you, Mr. Bulletin. You can go
Thank
back
you
to your
very
meeting
much
if you
again
want,
for
but I
your
think
time.
it's in.
Appreciate it.
We are on to Article 37, Public Community Trust Bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am Peter Matlin, a petitioner, and I serve as chair of the Plymouth for All Town Committee. Our committee reviewed closely the bylaw and voted unanimously to endorse it. I am here with Kristen Thomas of the Together We Can community organization, who is also a petitioner. And Kristen will make a complimentary statement following my presentation, and also accompanied by Art Deslodges, a petitioner who will help me in responding to your questions. Let me begin by identifying two primary goals of this bylaw. First, it is to support police officers by building community trust in the PPD, and thereby help police officers do their work more effectively with full cooperation from all Plymouth residents. This will be done by confirming that the Plymouth police officers will not execute the functions of ICE agents. The second goal is to ensure that scarce Plymouth town resources, both human and financial, are not diverted to support the national deportation campaign. I'll now briefly answer 5 questions. What is the situation in Plymouth that makes this bylaw necessary? Second, what can municipalities do? Third, is the proposed bylaw legal? Fourth, does the bylaw conflict with Plymouth Police Department programs and with Select Board policies? And fifth, why is the bylaw necessary? First, the question about the situation here in Plymouth. As you all know, ICE operations over the last year have disrupted people's lives in both immigrant and non-immigrant communities by creating an atmosphere of fear. This fear has impacted everyone, regardless of their citizenship. In our conversations, our committee's conversations with both secular and religious leaders in the immigrant community, we've learned that people are afraid to go to work. They're afraid to send their children to school. They are afraid to seek medical attention. They're even afraid to attend Sunday church services. Of particular relevance to this bylaw is that there is a fear of the police based on the misperception that the Plymouth Police Department is cooperating with ICE. The consequences are that communities are fearful of reaching out to the police to report crimes, to cooperate in investigations, and to serve as witnesses. And this leads perpetrators of crimes on the streets and reduces public safety for all citizens. So the second question, what can municipalities do, such as Plymouth? There are at least 3 options. First, town departments can adopt procedures that prohibit collaboration with ICE. The Plymouth Police Department did this by developing procedures in February of 2025. In addition, the Select Board can issue town policies, as Plymouth did June the 6th of this year, January. January 6th of this year. Finally, the town meeting members can enact bylaws, such as those we are presenting here this evening. The most impactful approach is to do all three. And this is because building trust in the PPD will be greater if the town acts in unity and with one voice. So the third question, is the proposed bylaw legal? The answer is an unequivocal yes. The bylaw is in full compliance with Massachusetts state law. It's been thoroughly vetted by several immigration and litigation lawyers. And the wording in our law has been taken directly from the bylaws that have been enacted in a number of other Massachusetts towns, which have been approved by the Attorney General. So the proposed bylaw is legal. Fourth, does the bylaw conflict with PPD procedures and with Select Board policy? Could it introduce confusion? The answer is no. The bylaw was intentionally designed to align with and to reinforce those policies and procedures by codifying them and providing a legal complement. Fifth and finally, why enact a bylaw? There are at least three core reasons. First, it increases trust and confidence in local law enforcement. By codifying existing procedures into law, we provide residents the assurance that they need to feel safe when cooperating with Plymouth police officers. Second, a bylaw is durable, that it's more lasting and less subject to change. Town department policies and procedures, including the police departments, can be changed immediately without elected civilian oversight. Similarly, Select Board policies can be changed at any meeting by any three members. In contrast, a bylaw is permanent until it is repealed by a vote at the town meeting. The important point here is that assurance of continuity is critical to reduce fear. Residents need to know that these policies and procedures will not change overnight. Third, the bylaw provides civilian oversight. Town meeting represents the will of the voters, not the decisions of town departments. And civilian oversight is key, particularly in matters of public safety. I'll conclude, Mr. Chair, by making it clear what the bylaw does not do. It does not restrict ICE activities in Plymouth. Our town does not have the legal authority to do that. The bylaw does not restrict the ability of the Plymouth Police Department to continue to investigate and pursue all criminal matters in all circumstances. Moreover, the bylaw does not restrict the Plymouth Police Department from working with ICE to enforce criminal judicial warrants. And it does not limit the information that is shared between ICE and PPD on all criminal matters. In short, the bylaw is narrowly focused. It simply makes it clear that local police and other town officials will not do the work of ICE in civil immigration enforcement. By approving this bylaw, the town meeting will help rebuild trust in the PPD, which will make it safer for all Plymouth residents to come forward without fear to engage with our town's police officers. And it will also prevent town resources from being diverted to assist the federal deportation campaign. I urge you to support the bylaw, and I thank you very much for your time. I would now like to ask Kristen Thomas to add a brief statement.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Thomas. I'm co-founder of Together We Can, along with Lori Fitzpatrick. Our work is entirely volunteer-run and is grounded in interfaith values of neighbors helping neighbors. We work closely with our immigrant community here in Plymouth. We hear the stories of their hopes, dreams, and fears. I'm sure many of you have immigration stories in your family. We believe together we can foster a community of care, compassion, and dignity. That is precisely what the Plymouth Community Trust bylaw helps to promote. We're all aware that immigrants help make this community run. They cook and serve us food at many of our wonderful restaurants. They care for our children. They build and clean houses. They mow our lawns. Yet despite contributing to this community every day, families live in constant uncertainty. Immigration status does not matter in the current times. Even those following the rules have been detained. Recently, a Plymouth North High School student shared a powerful message about the reality facing immigrant families in our beloved town. She described how fear has become part of daily life, how before dialing 911, many families pause and calculate whether calling for help might put themselves at greater risk than the crime they're reporting. As the name suggests, the Plymouth Community Trust bylaw will help stabilize trust between our residents and local law enforcement. It matters for everyone who calls Plymouth home, regardless of background. First, public safety improves when everyone can report a crime. When crimes go unreported, because families fear immigration consequences, perpetrators operate with impunity. Abuse continues unchecked. The bylaw ensures that calling 911 doesn't become a risk assessment. Second, community trust strengthens policing effectiveness. Law enforcement works best when all residents cooperate. By separating local policing from federal immigration enforcement, we build relationships that help solve crimes and keep everyone safer. Third, economic stability depends on workforce security. As I mentioned earlier, immigrants fill essential roles in our community. When workers live in constant fear, productivity suffers and families are destabilized. Protecting them protects our local economy. This bylaw aligns with the police department policy presented at the January 6th Select Board meeting. The PPD worked hard on that policy, and it should be solidified and affirmed by town meeting to make sure that Plymouth will always be a town where the entire community can trust their police force and other town employees. We hope you join us in supporting the Plymouth Community Trust bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I see Catherine Holmes online first.
Hi, everyone. So thanks for coming and talking through this bylaw. I just have a couple quick questions that I just want to make sure I understand with certainty before making a decision on which way I'm going to vote on this. And that is around what happens if a police officer, we pass this bylaw, and a police officer decides that, or makes an error and does in fact support ICE in their efforts of arresting some immigrants that are in our community. What is the consequences for that? I don't see it, I'm not seeing it outlined here.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
You could announce yourself, please.
Yeah, Arctis Loges, I'm petitioner, Precinct 15. So every provision in the article here is copied from another municipality that has been enacted, all right? So to answer your question, Catherine, probably have to go through each provision because they're a bit different. So under, if I can, under provision F, and you have it in front of you, that applies both to all town officials and police, and everybody in law enforcement. So that would be elected officials, appointed officials, and employees, right? And it says that they cannot perform the functions of an ICE officer. So as an individual, that's just not possible because in order to have a violator to perform the functions of an ICE officer, you would have to enter into a 287G agreement. And individuals just do not have that capacity. So that's just not going to happen for provision F. So it kind of refers to town departments. Town departments would not be allowed to enter into a 287G agreement, which is a collaboration type agreement with ICE. Under A, which the provision of A is that town employee, which again applies to all town employees, that they cannot ask somebody their immigration status, except for one of the two provisions that are outlined in the bylaw. So that means that everybody cannot ask people that they're doing, they come into contact with, their immigration status. That only applies when they're performing the role of a town employee or an appointee. It in no way governs their private life or what they do on the outside. If there were a violation under provision A, right, then the most likely thing is the town department that was in charge of that individual would instruct them that they cannot ask individuals their immigration status. And they may be subject to administrative consequences depending on what that town department has for rules. There is no penalty or fine for a violation under this bylaw. It's envisioned that every town employee will comply because it is a bylaw, and that is what they have said they will do when they took employment. And it's the same with the police. They also have sworn an oath that they will provide by the rules and policies and procedures of the police department, which are pretty much identical to what's in the bylaw. Now, does that answer your question?
Well, not really. It actually, the bylaws that I have seen, they typically have consequences in them. So even like the puppy mill bylaw that I passed and brought before town meeting years ago, or the fur bylaw, there was penalties that would be associated, and it's written in the bylaw. And so if the bylaw is written and it doesn't say, refer to employee whatever for consequences, like it leaves it wide open. And then who's going to be policing this? So, if you will, use that word. Because even in other bylaws that I've seen, there would be a person or a department that would be responsible for managing it and making sure that the bylaw was being upheld. And there's typically, in order to do that, a funding source that's required in order to make sure that the bylaw is being properly managed. And so I guess I'm concerned that those pieces are not in there. And if you're asking, you're talking about essentially the police force primarily, is what it sounds like to me in this article, to not be engaging with ICE. And if they do, you've got the police force that would be called because there's, quote, been a broken law, right? I think I'm really concerned with the way that it's worded, and I'm concerned about the lack of procedures. Like when you look at the chief's policy that we reviewed and was shared with us, there's consequences in the chief's policy that says if an officer chooses to, say, work with ICE, they would have consequences like they might be formally reprimanded, or they may have to have more training and, counseling, or they might be, put on the desk, or there may be a probation or a suspension. There's steps that the chief could take in order to support the policy that he has in place. But if we put this in front of it, I think it's redundant, and I'm trying to figure out, well, who's going to police the police? And since it's not clearly defined, and you're saying that one of the risks of this is that the chief's policies could be changed with a new administration or a new chief that comes in. I think it's really, there's a lot of questions that I have more than answers. And I'm a person that is really horrified by watching what's happening with ICE often in some communities with some ICE officers. So I think that how are we going to protect the town if a resident says that something has happened and there's this vagueness in the bylaw? Is this going to lead to litigation?
There were many questions in there. I will try to get to all of them.
the bylaw is written not to inflict or have people face penalties. It's a statement of guidance and instruction to town employees and town departments that they are not going to participate in ICE activities. And that is what's necessary in order to build trust in the community, that we can stand up and say that we have bylaws and the town is serious, that they are not, that the conduct of ICE is something that we're drawing a line. We're not going to have that. So the idea, so the bylaw does have no fines and it has no penalties, which is exactly similar to the bylaws of every other municipality, which I've listed in the documents I've given to you, all right, and that have been approved by the Attorney General. So I don't see having a penalty as a good thing, as I see not having a penalty as a good thing, because it's meant to build trust. And that is the whole purpose. Now, we had another, I kind of lost track of what your other question was.
So Art, let me do a follow-up if I could, please. So if the goal is to have that the residents have lost trust, but this bylaw is that we don't trust the chief's policy, right? So we're putting a bylaw in place because we're not trusting the chief's policy. It's an interesting approach. I think that it brings more questions for me than answers. I like the concept as a person that has lost their housekeeper who was here on a work permit, legally authorized to work in the country. I personally have been impacted by this, but I also have another question regarding all of the good work that the ICE group did and does, and which the chief had mentioned at one of the, I think it was at the select board meeting, around like sex trafficking and working with them to try to, reduce that. So I'm going to have to dig into this a lot further, Art. But I want to make sure that there are things that we use them for, that we don't want to lose that opportunity.
Well, let me, if I can, just in 2 sentences, right? So what town meeting is being asked to vote on is whether the will of the voters is going to be decided at town meeting by the legislative elective members who represent Plymouth. Or is it going to be determined by town departmental policies? I believe elected civilian rule is what's necessary for all communities. Because when we leave procedures to town departments, they often run amok from overreach and the lack of a democratic process. Now, that is what the petitioners believe, and so that's why they're advancing this bylaw.
Well, thank you for that, Art. I appreciate you all coming. I'm going to continue to talk this through, and I know you're coming to our caucus in Precinct 9 next Wednesday. So we'll talk about it further then. I think my biggest concern is that this puts us at risk of lawsuits because there's no language in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
Have this group met with the police chief to discuss this bylaw and match it to the policy existing at the police department already?
Yeah, thank you for that. So, yes, we've met with the police chief. We've met with most of the select board members, offered to meet with all of them. I've met with many town meeting members. I've met with the town moderator. I've met with the assistant town manager. We've met with many litigation attorneys. We went through the whole process, which you went through with the police chief and the deputy. His response was pretty much what he said in January 6th at that select board meeting. I don't want to characterize more than what he said.
Pompey?
Yeah, a question, just follow up on Catherine's concern a little bit.
there is still in place a policy, and the policy does have some penalties involved in it. Is that correct? The policy, not the law, that the police haven't.
Yes. The
So-
policies and procedures of the police, which are identical. The protections are the same. It's not a question of which protections are more or less. We're not, the protections there are very, very good. There's a matter of whether they should be existing policies, should be codified into a town bylaw. And the question again was?
Well, my real concern or lack of concern in terms of what Catherine was talking about is that what she's asking for can and to a certain extent is covered in policy.
Yeah.
And my question is that not good enough for any legal problem that would come up?
So, to the extent that town departments have policies and procedures will have administrative consequences stands.
Art, it really hurts me to say this because I signed the original petition. But the more that I look at this and the more that I hear the discussion, it seems to me that the bylaw, the policy, the original policy that you proposed and the bylaw that you're now proposing, neither of them really address the issue that you're trying to address, which is really the behavior of some ICE agents in our town. I don't think that we have jurisdiction, and I understand that that's not what your intention is, but I think that's the root of what you're trying to get at. And I don't think that legislating this is going to help that situation. And I think it could indeed cause confusion between what the police policy already is and what the town is mandating the police to do.
There is nothing in the town in Massachusetts can do to prevent ICE from coming into the community and doing whatever what they're tasked to do. What's of concern to the municipalities and the petitioners is that citizens and residents are perceiving that town officials and the police department are somehow in the background, part of this whole thing. The issue isn't about, it's about trust. How do we make sure that our citizens trust that the town officials and the police department is not participating and we can find some comfort in the law that they will not do that? So if I could give you any number of examples, if I come into town hall and I walk into a department and they ask me a question or whatever business I have, I would like to know that those officials are in no way connected with some ICE immigration enforcement collaboration agreement. And that's what this bylaw does. And it does the same for the police department. The police departments of the towns that have enacted this, their police departments have said it makes their job easier, not harder.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a quick question. You used a couple times in your presentation that residents are afraid, worried to come forward. Where is the data on that? I haven't had a single Precinct 10 constituent reach out to me. They're concerned at the way the police department or town employees are handling themselves. So what data can you point to that tells me that there's a host of residents that are nervous, afraid to go to work? In my circles, I haven't seen that. I haven't even heard that. So could you point that? Thank you.
I'll give you qualitative data. I can't give you numbers. We've had in-depth conversations with both secular and religious leaders in the immigrant community. And they have reported a level of fear of the Plymouth Police Department to the extent that when individuals that are black or brown, they may even be U.S. citizens, but they fear that they may be perceived as immigrants, are walking down the street and they see a Plymouth cruiser, Plymouth Police Department cruiser, they will turn around and walk back. This has been reported to us in several incidents that this is a fear that is being experienced. And so when an incident occurs, they're very reluctant to call 911 to engage with a Plymouth police officer. And let me just answer one other question that Catherine had asked earlier in terms of sex trafficking and other criminal activities that immigrants might be involved with. There is absolutely no restriction whatsoever of Plymouth Police Department working with ICE on criminal matters. No restriction whatsoever in this bylaw. They will cooperate completely in terms of enforcing criminal warrants. No issues there at all.
Peter, can I speak to that question?
Any other questions from the committee?
I just want to speak to that question
Sure.
because we have qualitative data as the organization Together We Can working directly with residents that are impacted, immigrant residents, that at the height of what happened in the fall at Hedge Elementary School up to when all of the ICE activity was going on in North Plymouth, 26 children on average per day did not go to school in that particular school. As well, other families in that area, those are the families that are mainly impacted. I'm not sure where your precinct is, but it's really the North Plymouth residents that are mainly impacted here. And we have had to escort many house cleaners, people working in lawns, you know, to work because they were afraid. And I'm talking just down the road, afraid to drive through their own neighborhood. So fear is real. We've had families report that they can't leave homes. We've had calls where families are peeking out their windows, wondering who is parked on the street. Could it be ICE? Could we help them? The fear is absolutely real, and these are residents of our community.
Your definition of resident,
Mm-hmm.
the legal residents of the community, tax-paying citizens?
The definition of a resident is a person living in a community.
All right. Because earlier in the.
And yes, they're taxpayers. Most
They're the
immigrants have tax identification numbers and pay taxes.
Okay,
Yes.
most? Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Well, that is a fact.
All right. I didn't hear earlier, maybe you did, Mr. Chairman, when the question was asked of the school committee chairman. Last year, we had 400 non-English speaking students in Hedge School. I didn't hear what his answer was tonight. He turned and spoke to someone, the woman from the New Jersey, I believe, school department. Did you hear the number? How many? There's still 350 out of 400? So 70 students that aren't in school this year that were in school last year. So I'm just wondering, the numbers don't seem to warrant, in my opinion, a bylaw that's going to go on the books. The police chief, in my opinion, watching the January meeting, seemed to take care of that situation. And I would be hesitant as a town meeting member to put something of this nature in the bylaws. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, I've got a couple of questions and comments. I'm having a hard time seeing what your end objective here is. You say that your end objective is to support the police and defer fear. The police chief said that this would be detrimental to his policy. And you're literally saying that you're trying to make rules for the Plymouth Police Department. Because I don't see any other town employee that would interact with ICE on a daily basis. And it really seems like we're creating a bylaw looking for a problem. And we really should be very careful not to be politicizing bylaws. And when you talked about enforcement, you said most likely. Enforcement should never be most likely. And when we're creating bylaws, this is something that is permanent in our system. If we're not, you talk about trust, the trust of the chief, that meeting where he got up and gave his policy, at the end of that meeting, every group, including a couple of your group that is standing here tonight, commended him. And everybody I spoke to who watched that meeting said, wow, I trust that guy. And part of his contract that he creates policy for the police department. If we're looking to trust our police department and gain trust throughout the community, I would say when we go out in the community, I've spoken to the chief. I've listened to his policy. He is behind you. If we're talking to people who are afraid to come out of their house and afraid to call 911, I'd love to have a meeting with that person and the chief. This is how we galvanize our community, is by taking law enforcement, our law enforcement, taking the community, bringing them together and saying, hey, look, there's an issue. It's a national issue. If you look at the communities that are supporting ICE, there's less chaos. There's less fear, because if you're supporting ICE, like the sheriff is, if a illegal alien is in custody, they call ICE. ICE comes to the jail, picks them up. They don't go to North Plymouth. They don't create that fear. I think that we as a society are creating this division, and we're creating this fear because we want to look like we're doing something. And because we want to look like we're doing something, we're saying, oh, we've got to create a law that says we're not going to support ICE. We're not looking at ways that we make ICE better. We're not making, your end result here isn't going to create a community. It's going to create division, because there's going to be people saying, well, I think we should support ICE. And there's going to be people who say, well, you shouldn't support ICE. It's not about ICE. You say that your bylaw is about creating no fear. If you want to create no fear, you've got to support the police department we have. Bring the community together. That's my comments.
If I could respond briefly, I could not agree with you more that what is important is to bring the community together and to understand what is in the police department's procedures that Chief Flynn articulated and which we support. And what this bylaw does is simply codify what is in Chief Flynn's procedures and make it difficult for the next chief of police to change them, to give assurance to people that these procedures are not going to change overnight. And it's only with that assurance that it is a durable state of the law here in Plymouth that people will have confidence to call 911 in that community. We don't think that the bylaw of itself is sufficient. What will be necessary will be a communication strategy to take it out to the community, explain to them what the police procedures are, explain to them that they can trust the Plymouth Police Department and the officers that they see on the street, and to know that that trust will be good tomorrow and the day after and for the next couple of years. Who will follow Chief Flynn, we don't know. And he could easily change those procedures, and there is otherwise no oversight of him. He has to inform the select board, but the select board does not approve those changes if changes are made. This bylaw will codify Chief Flynn's procedures and give people the assurance that they can feel safe calling the police department years from now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a comment on town employees that do interface with immigration, which are teachers, because I'm one of them.
Could you,
Teachers.
if you're using the word immigration,
Yes,
are you talking about ICE?
I'm talking about immigrant residents.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, families, teachers. So as a teacher working at Cold Spring Elementary, which has high, I wouldn't say a high immigrant population, but elevated, less than Hedge, but it does have quite a few immigrant families. Those families would feel safer if they knew that teachers would not be able to report to ICE their immigrant status. For example, the Plymouth Public Schools supports families that are impacted by domestic violence and child abuse. Now, the reports that come through the schools of these incidents are something that we deal with and that we work with the Department of Children and Families. So I feel, this bylaw would also oversee teachers so that families would feel safe to be able to report domestic violence, child abuse, and other crimes that are happening or that impact children. So that is one of the sectors of the town that really do, I think, really, I would say as a teacher myself, interface, with immigrant families and create trust for them and children.
All right, any more questions or comments from the committee? Oh, yep, I can't see it.
Well, I did watch the police chief's, the selectmen's meeting with the police chief. I was satisfied with all his answers to everything in his policies. I definitely will not be supporting this, because my personal opinion is you're asking for a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It's temporary, whether it's 3 years or what it is, but it's temporary. I'm definitely not in favor of passing a bylaw for it.
I would open up to public comment.
Thank you for the time to
Yep.
answer the questions.
Yeah, if you could stay up, public comment might want to ask you a question. If there's a bunch of you, probably should line up.
Hello, I'm Belinda Brewster, Precinct 15. I'm opposing this article for a town bylaw forbidding all town employees, including police, to cooperate with ICE, which basically declares our town a sanctuary city. First, this proposed town bylaw in itself, while they say it doesn't break any state laws, it is in violation of federal laws. 8 U.S.C. 1373 forbids state or local entities from having laws or policies that prohibit or restrict sending to or requesting from DHS information about someone's lawful or unlawful immigration status. Second, this bylaw would prohibit cooperation with ICE with regard to administrative warrants. It clearly states only judicial warrants will be cooperated with, but administrative warrants are legal. And every illegal alien served an administrative warrant has had their full due process and a final order of removal from an immigration judge. The U.S. Supreme Court has consistently upheld the legality of administrative warrants in immigration cases. In the eyes of the law, these aliens are considered fugitives from justice. Contrary to the false assertion in this article, the officers issuing these administrative warrants have also found probable cause. This, Mr. Dislodges states that Plymouth police may continue regarding criminal investigations, but a close reading of the actual bylaw says that without a judicial warrant, no employee shall respond to ICE or Border Patrol requests seeking information or allow ICE to use facilities or access to any suspected criminal illegal alien or assist ICE in any arrests of individuals subject to deportation. This bylaw would tie the hands of the police department and the chief to assist in the investigation and arrests of criminals and lawbreakers in our community. How does that enhance public safety? This bylaw demands our town employees not cooperate in arresting people who are breaking the law. That's the very definition of a sanctuary city and will attract criminal aliens who know they don't have to worry about the law enforcement in the town of Plymouth. Since January 2025, there have been 2,860 arrests of criminal illegal aliens in Massachusetts. Yet only 3 of those arrests occurred in Plymouth, and each arrest was under a judicial warrant. So 3 arrests in 14 months. ICE is not roaming the streets of Plymouth looking to arrest people. They are not randomly asking people for their immigration status. They're not in schools dragging students out. They're not the ones making the town unsafe. Instead, they are doing their job enforcing our country's immigration laws. It's groups like Together We Can and the No Place for Hate crowd that are ginning up the fear and distrust of ICE and local law enforcement, as well as actively promoting divisiveness in our community. It's blatant fear-mongering by Mr. Dislodges and this article. Mr. Dislodges also states when local police are perceived as extensions of federal immigration, community trust collapses. That's his opinion. I think this trust may be collapsing among the law-abiding residents of this town at the lack of cooperation with ICE. This bylaw demands police ignore their law enforcement duties and pressures them to bend the knee to this extreme liberal anti-ICE viewpoint.
Mrs. Brewster, would you like another minute?
Just one more minute. Town bylaws should not be politicized. Mr. Dislodges says that bylaws like this have been passed in other communities, 7 other communities, Boston, Cambridge, Amherst, and Northampton, to name a few. We are not those communities. There are 351 communities in Massachusetts. 2% of communities is hardly a ringing endorsement for such a draconian bylaw. I'm urging town meeting members to vote against this bylaw that basically declares Plymouth a sanctuary city. It is unnecessary, thanks to the chief of police, and highly politicized. And if this bylaw passes town meeting, it doesn't have to be repealed by a future town meeting. The town could be subject to a referendum and a special election costing $40,000 to $50,000 to overturn this vote at town meeting. So please, elected town officials, listen to all your constituents, not just the loudest who are putting illegals ahead of the rights of legal residents to live in a law-abiding community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Platt, and I live in Precinct 6. I was an early signer of the petition leading to this warrant. I did so because I believe that one can simultaneously hold 2 beliefs. Number 1, that our police department, led by Chief Flynn, does an outstanding job of keeping our community safe. I thank them for this. Number 2, that our immigrant neighbors need every assurance possible that their legal rights will be protected, regardless of personnel or policy changes, external political pressures, or other factors that we cannot currently envision. In various forums, I have heard the discussion of this warrant framed as an either-or. Either you're behind the police department, or the immigrant community. I see no contradiction between these two positions, and I urge you to support the warrant. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Dugan, and I vote in Precinct 16. I have followed the immigration issues in America for a number of years now. I have testified at the State House, spending hours and hours and hours there, waiting to testify against some new law or that they were trying to implement. Because Massachusetts is a sanctuary state as determined by the Lund decision by the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts, Massachusetts is a magnet for these people who've come across our southern border. We are extremely generous to these people. We provide housing, we provide medical care, we provide food, we provide transportation, we provide education to their children, while American citizens' needs are not being met. On April 10th of last year, I was traveling on Clark Road. There was construction in front of Pine Hills, and so, we waited for a while until it was our turn to go. And just after I passed the on and off ramp to 3 South, a very large landscaping truck from Somerset, Massachusetts, pulled straight out in front of me in an attempt to make an illegal U-turn. I slammed into him going 35 or 40 miles an hour. I totaled my car. I was taken to Plymouth Hospital. No broken bones. I had a deep vein thrombosis in my leg, which wasn't detected for a month. I had an airbag that hit both of my legs. And when an airbag is looking for some place to go, let me tell you, it wraps around your legs. I've had permanent damage done to my legs. I don't know the status of this individual. He did not speak English. Every state in the country that has allowed driver's licenses for these people who have come into our country has seen a huge increase in the number of traffic fatalities. I'm one of the lucky ones. While my life has been changed, I am still here and I can speak to protect American citizens. This bylaw proposal would prevent our town clerk's office, for instance, cooperating
Ms. Dugan,
with
would you like
ICE
another minute?
officials. 1 minute, thank you. Would prevent them from cooperating with ICE officials when they want to know, say, census information. So they'd like to know who else might be in the house. They want to do things safely, when they knock on a door. I oppose this bylaw in every way, shape, or form. Our police department keeps this town very safe. And I hope that you will consider these things that I have said to you today and not support this bylaw. Thank you.
Good evening, Tim Shawbrook, Precinct 14. I'd like to voice my opposition to this bylaw, primarily because this is a group of political activists that are trying to micromanage the chief of police. Let's take a look at what ICE actually has done in this town. They came in 6 times last year. Each time they were enforcing a judicial removal order. That means the illegal alien, and that's who we're talking about. We're not talking about immigrants. We're not talking about residents. The illegal alien illegally in this country was ordered deported, defied the judge, and ICE came into this town 6 times. They were able to locate 3. Let's take a look at the 3 people that these folks would like to keep in our town. 2 of them had convictions from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for aggravated assault, domestic violence, and weapons charges. One of those two also had an active federal warrant for federal felony. The third was a convicted rapist. You want to keep these people in our town? How does that make this town safer? Question, do immigrants pay taxes? Big difference between an immigrant and a legal alien. Immigrant has legal documentation to be in this country and has working papers. That's why they pay taxes. Illegal aliens don't. How does an illegal alien work? Either the business is violating our labor laws, they're working under the table, or they're engaged in identity theft. That is one of the biggest crime illegal aliens do in this country, identity theft. Why? Because they need a false social security number to get a job. Identity theft is not a victimless crime. If you've ever been a victim of identity theft, you would understand that. Okay? I would like to say this. ICE does a lot more than people realize. I'm a former federal employee. I worked with ICE. I was not a member of DHS. I won't name my agency because I'm speaking in personal capacity. People should know that ICE does more than just immigration. They're engaged in a lot of criminal activity. The number one crime that ICE and CBP are involved with is child sex trafficking. It would shock you the level of child sex trafficking coming across the Canadian border. And I tell you, one of the things that I had to do in my capacity was to build facilities. Border Patrol came to me and asked me to build a bigger facility in Maine. That facility was a morgue because these illegal immigrants get dropped off in Maine in the middle of winter where it's 30 below to zero and they get frozen to death. Okay?
Mr. Sharbrooke, would you like another minute?
I'll take another 30 seconds. Illegal immigrant and illegal immigration is just not a Mexican southern border thing. It's happening on the northern border quite well. Okay? And there are serious consequences to it. Why we would ask this town to become a sanctuary city and encourage illegal immigration is beyond me. People are going to be killed, children are going to be sex trafficked, and you're going to have violent criminals in your community that they would like to see this town assist to evade ICE, which is, by the way, a crime. Anti-harboring, Title 8, Section 1324 makes it a crime to enter into a conspiracy to assist illegal aliens to evade detection, detention, and deportation. And as far as judicial warrants go, they always like to say that illegal immigration is a civil offense. That's why it's an administrative warrant. It's a civil offense until they commit a crime. The actual act of being in this country illegally is a civil violation, and that's why you have administrative warrants. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Kate Butler. I live in Precinct 1. Thank you for opening this up to public comment, and thank you for all you do. You do a lot of hard work, and as a resident, I appreciate it. I am here to urge you to support this proposed bylaw. I am a person who believes strongly in immigration enforcement and criminal enforcement, and I don't think anything in the proposed bylaw would do anything other than to continue to have ICE and the police and everybody actually go after criminals. We have seen, however, abuses and confusion, and a friend of mine that has a son who was adopted from Latin America. He's a legal citizen. They're terrified that he'll be picked up because he looks Latin American. And so I think that there is a real fear that can be addressed here. Not all of the problems of immigration, which are very complicated and deep, can be addressed by this, but we can do the bit that we can. Happily, the police chief has fabulous policies in place. I thought his January presentation was very thoughtful and good. He could retire, he could win the lottery and move to Florida, gosh knows, and there are other departments. And so I think it's important for the town to say, we support this kind of approach and make sure that as personnel changes or political pressures change, that remains in effect. So I urge you to support it, and I thank you for your consideration.
My name is Hunter Young. I'm from Precinct 7. I think that a lot of the conversation surrounding the opposition to this bylaw, as I do oppose the bylaw, for me, it's less about the actual bylaw specifically and more about the rhetoric from those that are supporting the bylaw. I think one of the people supporting it here tonight, they said that this helps make it clear that the town will not support the mass deportation campaign. That is a political opinion that the bylaw itself does not address, but they are choosing to bring it up when we address the bylaw. So clearly there's a greater political idea behind this bylaw, which I wish the petitioners were more clear in that. If we wanted to have a non-binding resolution about where town meeting stands on ICE or mass deportations, let's do it. Let's have that conversation. But they're using this bylaw to do that, and I think that that's a little bit misleading because a lot of people aren't watching this meeting. A lot of people aren't listening. They're not going to hear that being said. They're only going to see the bylaw and not the things behind it. Also, I think, too, we've heard a lot about how people are afraid, and people are certainly afraid. There's been things in the media. There's been things on social media. There's been actual cases where ICE has done things wrong. Obviously, law enforcement is not perfect. However, I think that the people supporting this petition tonight are intentionally confusing illegal immigrants with immigrants, implying that immigrants have something to be afraid about in Plymouth specifically, when again, we haven't really seen that be the case other than ICE agents coming in doing their job in Plymouth. And to my third point, again, I think one of the people who mentioned it tonight, this is not something that the town can control. We vote every 4 years for who will be president, for who will be in charge of ICE. We had that election already. Yes, we should make our voices heard. Yes, we should, do the political process. But again, this is clearly a political statement by the petitioners that they're trying to make, and not one that should be deciding what our laws in Plymouth are. So that's why I oppose the bylaw. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim Patterson. Lived here for almost 6 years in Pine Hills. I live in the Mark apartment complexes. And I'm not here for any of these reasons. I'm here for me. I'm a grandmother, and I've got grandchildren coming of age at this time. They'll be voting soon, one of them next year. And I look at me when I grew up and the trust that I had in the people in power, in our governments, in our local governments, our federal governments. And for me, there is a real recognition that things have changed. I never questioned ICE. I never questioned DHS. Why would I? They do a great job. They do a service that we need. But it's not the same anymore. Things have changed. These people and these laws come from every community in our country, every town. They are us. These values that are on display. And I look at my grandchildren and I think, what are you learning? Do we say, because you're breaking a law, we're going to talk about you like you're other? These people? You're stealing our money? Is that how we teach our kids to look at other people because they're doing something we don't like? Or do we go and we say, we're a nation on the rule of law, and this is how we deal with things? So as a citizen, I'm here, and I'm watching power being consolidated at the federal level in one person's hands. And all of us can watch the repercussions of that playing out across our country and across the world. And then I come here and I see, trust one man. Trust the police chief. I've known him for years. He's great. I think he's great too. I've never had any reason not to. I'm not here about a person. I'm here about who are we? This bylaw for me is put in writing in a law, despite our federal election. Who are we? Are we someone that just says, federal government comes in, you got to do whatever they say? That's just simply not true. Every town across this country is having these same conversations. And as a citizen, if I'm watching kids hiding at school, or their best friend just got taken, or their housekeeper just got taken, I have to say, or somebody kicked in a tail light, and so the repercussion of that under our law system is you get killed. We all have to talk to our kids about what our values are that are on display in our country. And I agree, Plymouth is great, but it doesn't mean that that won't come here. It doesn't mean that it's just some other place. If we have the opportunity to put into our bylaw that this is who we are as a community, and yes, we trust our police, but it's a policy. Let's put it into a law.
Would you like
So I'm
another
not
minute?
saying hurt anybody. I'm just saying as a citizen, as a grandmother, I want to pass on a system of government that is about the rule of law. It's not about the policy. It's not about a person. That's all I want to do. And that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanne Oscar, Precinct 14. I wasn't planning to speak, but I just wanted to reiterate that this bylaw is not designed to protect criminals. It is, again, to quell the fears in the community. And if you don't know anyone that's fearful in the community, then that's just your white privilege showing its face that you don't know these people that are fearful. We have data. I don't have current data to give you tonight, but we have it from November of how the English as a second language learners numbers were way down from last year at the same time in the community because those kids were fearful to go to school. And this is, again, just codifying the police's policy. It is not trying to protect people who are committing crimes. It is to quell fear in the community, and I do support this bylaw.
Thank you. Any more public comment? That was good discussion. That's why we're here. All right, moving on to avoiding the fiscal cliff. George McKay. We're just having a brief moment here while we set up another presentation. Sorry for the delay for all the folks at home and the folks here. This is the Committee of Precinct Chairs on March 19th. We've got, that's the last part of the basic agenda. Then we go to new business, old business, a couple other things.
Good evening, George McKay, Precinct 8, and I think we almost got a slideshow going here. Thanks to Kevin and Kristen, right? Anyway, I'm here tonight to talk to you about an idea that I had when people were talking about trying to cut the budget 1%. And I don't know if you listened to that select board meeting or series of meetings, but they tried to get every department in town, including the school, to take 1% out of their budget, based on the fact if we continue doing what we're doing and the revenues don't go up as fast as our expenses go up, the town is going to be faced with the asking the voters to pass an override and increase our taxes. And, you know, one of the problems I have is I moved down here 15 years ago when I retired, and I was hoping I would have a nice, convenient retirement based on the taxes that we had here and the expenses that we had. And right now, we're in a situation where we're faced with expenses going up faster than our revenue is going up. So I started looking around at what other people are doing in Plymouth and what people are doing around the other parts of the state and around the country to see how they're dealing with this problem. And so I came up with an idea, not my idea, but the idea that I got from the Council on Aging or the Center of Active Living. And you can see from my hairline, I probably go there periodically. One of the things they do every year is they add up the number of volunteer hours that people give them for all kinds of things that they do. And the state actually calculates the value of a volunteer hour. And they multiply the volunteer hours times that dollar value. And last year they gave the state a check for over $1 million based on what people contribute to the operation of the Center of Active Living. The government, as I said, assigns a particular dollar value to every volunteer hour in the state. And some of these statistics should be no surprise that in the District of Columbia, they are number one at $52 an hour. Massachusetts is number two, second highest at $42 an hour, and California is third at $40.14. That means every time we have a committee made up of volunteers in the town, that value is the amount of hours they put in times this dollar value. And that's where the Center of Active Living gets their $1 million check from. Every department in the town that has a volunteer or a volunteer organization has a contribution to the state and the town. And in this case, it's significant at the Center of Active Living, and I believe it's significant throughout the town. So there are town committees and there are elected bodies. The elected body in town that also gets a stipend is the select board. Other committees don't have specific stipends, but they contribute an awful lot financially to the town. There's also volunteer fire departments that complement other fire departments in other towns, and they have a certain value. So I took a look at that and I said, well, where are we with committees in this town? And it's amazing what I found. The town side has an advisory and finance committee and over 43 other committees. And you're probably familiar with some of them. The availability of resources, to give you an idea of what we could do to get committees, is 2 weeks ago, the select board did some appointing. They had an opening for the Board of Health. They had 5 candidates. They choose one. That means there are another 4 people in that group that wanted to volunteer their hours for the town, but they were not selected. The other thing they did is they had one opening for the Distinguished Visitor Committee. They had 6 candidates. These are 6 people who wanted to contribute time and effort to the town, and they chose one. That means there are another 5 people out there that would like to do something for the town, and they were not chosen. So I took a look at what we did, and that previous slide showed you what we're doing. And so I said, well, what are other people doing? So I took a look at I Googled some things. What are other people doing with volunteer firemen? Provincetown and Kingston have huge numbers of volunteer firemen. I think in Kingston, about 50% of the fire force is volunteer. Brookline, Mass. has a school expenditure and revenue study committee. Duxbury actively solicits volunteers for their schools through their website. Pembroke, Mass. has a bus fee for middle school and high school people, which complements their need for bus fees. Friends of Marblehead Schools raises about $70,000 a year for supplies for local schools. Earlier tonight, you heard somebody that works for the school department, and they're putting in their own money. Other towns have similar problems, but instead of asking the town employees to put their own money in, they have an organization that raises it. And this 70,000 is something that would not be insignificant for the town of Plymouth. So anyway, when I look at how close we are to having our revenues not be enough for our expenses, I think that this concept might be an idea that we want to distribute through the town, including the school department. One of the problems we had when we tried to talk to the departments about cutting 1% out of the budget, and the select board decided not to make it mandatory, if you listen to the select board meeting. Particularly, every department says, oh, this is important, we need this, we need it, et cetera. And the school committee gets up, the school department gets up and tells you how much they need, and they wring their hands and they say, it's for the children. If you ask them to cut their expenses, everything's for the children. You can't be against the children. So one of the alternative approaches that I'm suggesting, one of the things that's going to happen, I believe, when we come up to the town meeting, is there's a move afoot to re-examine whether we should have a 1% budget cut across the board in Plymouth. And this is not necessarily an alternative to that, but it could be used in conjunction with that. For example, if the school really feels, I'm picking on the school, I don't mean to do that, but if the school really feels that they can't cut expenses and they've already gone so far, then let's go from one school committee to a half a dozen. One I could think of is have a transportation committee. Another committee could be how to raise funds to buy supplies. Those two areas, I think, need some addressing. And I know that the school focuses on those two things, but I also believe that if we had a committee focused on that, made up of individuals with that kind of experience, we could get some results to come out the other end. So I'm not necessarily looking for any comments or anything. I just wanted to put this on the table to let everybody know that this is one of the thoughts I had, and I stole most of these ideas from other people, but I wanted to make a presentation to this group. So if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them. I don't have a lot of answers, but I'll get them back for you.
Any questions for George?
George, did you say, I want to make sure I got this right, that these volunteers working for, was it Cal? What organization did you say they turned in to the state and they got $1 million? Is that what I heard you say?
What the government does is they analyze the value of a volunteer contribution in a given state.
Okay.
So you can go online and you can ask for that information, and it will list the 50 states in the District of Columbia and tell you the value of a volunteer in that particular state to the organization.
No.
So,
Yeah, he mentioned $1 million. Not a real check. Okay, okay.
Any other
Because I was thinking
questions
we
for
got so
George?
many committees, like if we all put in our hours, the town would have like thousands of hours at $42 an hour.
Right,
And if we're
that-
gonna get a check, that's cool.
that,
But
that's,
Well, that's what I thought you were saying.
Well,
I'm sorry.
but that's true. I mean, the value of the people in this room is basically $42 an hour for everything they put in at this meeting and everything they put in at town meeting and everything they do as part of their homework. And you may not feel your value is that important compared to what the state thinks, but it's significant. Your value is significant. And, you know, it varies from person to person, but there's a price tag on it. Every single committee in town that puts in hours has a value to the town, some way, somehow, and that's all this means.
You got something? Go ahead.
Just a clarification on that slide deck. I know for Plymouth Public Schools, parents do pay transportation for busing for middle and high school. I know because I pay for my kids for their bus transportation. So just, I know that.
Right,
that already
and it
exists.
just may not be high enough in my opinion, but
It's pretty costly, but.
I'm just presenting some, I'm just presenting some facts. I would like to have.
Don't tell Dr. Campbell.
Yeah. I would like to have my personal opinion is, I would like to have a committee on transportation in the town of Plymouth, particularly related to the school. Right now, where we are is there's two things on the table, and this is the same two that was on the table last year. We're either going to buy a bunch of buses and hire a bunch of people, or we're going to negotiate with a vendor to get a lower price.
Mhm.
Those are the two concepts we've been operating on since I've been a town meeting member. I believe if we had a committee of people, I don't know how many, 5 people, 6 people, that put in a number of hours and knew what they were talking about, they could come up with an alternative approach to the one we've been using. And that's my only comment.
And the other thing, I know Mr. Canty's here, but when we're on FinCom together, we had a revenue task force that we had set up. So that might be something we can explore further into. I don't know if it's still been active. Yeah. But that might be worthwhile to try to reactivate.
Well, the point I'm trying to make here is that if we go down the path of trying to force a 1% cut, my opinion is we're not going to do any better than the select board did. Because for a whole lot of reasons. So I'm saying, well, let's maybe we want to cut, or maybe we want to propose a cut, but maybe the cut does not have to be right now. It could be, let's stabilize where we are and have no increase next year, but try and use concepts like this to keep our expenses relatively flat, and revenues will go up a little bit.
Thank you, George.
So,
Any other questions for George? Really, Joe? Okay.
Thank you, Russell. George, you were recommending a level spending strategy, it sounds like. And the problem, I think this is actually a very serious conversation, because we're capped at 2.5% every year, and real expenses go up 5 to however many you'd like to say, and we have fixed costs that comprise a huge portion of our budget. And so the cuts get made out of that discretionary part that gets left over. And we haven't had that conversation in town. And that's a problem, because you can cut this year, but what are you going to do next year? Because those costs are going to go up some percentage this year, next year, year after that. And so, the problems are, I mean, there's so 2.5 over 44 years has left us with Memorial Hall. That's problematic. And so what do we do about that? And I don't think that we've got an answer quite yet. And I appreciate you bringing it up. I think it's a really important conversation that we as a town need to have. I mean, you talked about overrides, and You know, some towns have done overrides and see how they worked, and then calibrated a couple of more overrides after that to figure out, well, how much do they need to actually pay for their costs of living and costs of running the town. And so, you know, that's kind of using an override as a test. I don't know if we want to do that as a town, but I don't know, I haven't heard anybody suggest anything as an alternative to anything like that. So thank you for bringing it up, and
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I'm just saying, let's put this in as a piece of the puzzle.
well, I just appreciate you bringing it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, unless there's anybody else who has a question for George. Thank you, George. Any public comment on George? Yes. Could you state your name, please? No.
Thank you. Belinda Brewster, Precinct 15. I'm also a former selectman, so I've been involved in a lot of these budget discussions, and what is never mentioned is free cash. The state of Massachusetts, at least back when I was a selectman, has a, not required, but an amount that they would like you to technically over budget, which is what free cash is. It is money that is not used in the budget. And they like to have, at least back when I was, it may have changed, 4% over budgeted. Or they call it 4% of free cash. I had always said, why don't we take, and I know that a lot of the free cash money is used to buy all the bright and shiny new things that Plymouth needs. I've always felt those belong in the budget, not as a secondary, gee, if we have enough money, we'll buy them. Let's put it in the budget and the things we really need. So free cash, what's it up to now? $20 million? $21 million? And it's basically the department heads over budgeting because they want that money. In my opinion, they want that money for all their bright new shiny things that they're not putting in the budget now. If we just said, okay, we're $4 million or 4%, what is that on a 344? Oh God, I'm terrible. 3.5, $7, $14 million, right? You know, back when I was a selectman, it would come in around $4 or $5 million because back when I was a selectman, which was 10, 12 years ago, was 177 million. So, so let's think about what's a better way to use free cash. We're looking for a 1%, that's $3.5 million. If free cash is going to come in at $20 million, why don't we just tell the department heads, hey, don't over budget for 4%, over budget for 2%. It's not free cash. I'm sorry. It is money that is overtaxed to the Plymouth taxpayers. Okay, thank you. Just think about free cash.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Jennifer, Vice Chair of Precinct 13. I'm just going to step out of that and mention as the retired Plymouth Public Library Director, who had many years of experience budgeting, I can tell you honestly that we always budgeted exactly to what contracts cost, what our union staff earned, what all our salaries were, whatever our book budget was. We never turned back more than $20, unless it was salaries, which you have no control over. That's, you know, people leave. And then perhaps projects, sometimes you do RFPs, they come in at a certain amount and you come in less. Those were the two places. We were never told and we never intentionally inflated our budget. So I know I'm speaking, you know, with emotion. I'm one department of many that I do believe are getting all washed into one concept. So
Okay.
that's all. Thank
So
you.
every place except for the library over budget. Okay. You're welcome. Yeah.
Jerry Williams, Precinct 8. And I think that rather than saying that we have to reduce the budget by 1%, which certainly didn't go anywhere, that we need to tell each department that they can only have what the cost of living increase is in their department. They have to figure out, because I've been looking at some of the budget, the salary, not salaries, but the minutes today. And some departments are only increasing their budgets by 2 or 3%. And then you've got departments that are raising their budgets by 8 and 10%. And I think that to be equitable, all departments should have to only be allowed to raise their budget by the cost of living. Thank you.
Thank you. We spurred a little bit of public comment there. That's good. Moving on to new business, I see the chair of the select board in the crowd. He recently sent out the guiding principles. Mr. Golden, would you talk about that a little bit? What they are, what they mean? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dave Golden, Chair of the Plymouth Select Board. I want to clarify, I didn't send out the guiding principles. We discussed as a select board. Some of the behavior that we've been seeing throughout town with some of our boards and committees, and you know, really we were focused on some of the bullying tactics and some of the really toxic disagreements that have been happening in some of our boards and committees. And we were all in agreement, I think, that that we needed to make a strong statement in favor of returning collegiality to the board and committee setting. Our guiding principles were reaffirmed by the select board earlier this year. They're really just a set of guidelines to tell people, like, you're all volunteers. We're here to work together as a collaborative form of government. Town meeting, no matter where you fall and whether town meeting is a form of government we should be utilizing in the town of Plymouth, it's the government that we have, and it's meant to be collaborative, it's meant to be respectful, and it's meant to be neighborly. And so while we have this form of government, I think it's important that we speak up and make sure that the people who are volunteering for us are behaving in a manner consistent with those guidelines. We asked our executive assistant, Jade Anderton, to send those out. She sent them today or yesterday to all department heads, all committee chairs, and I believe to every committee member, because I know I got some myself outside of, because I sit on other boards as liaison through the select board. So I believe everyone should have received that. I hope you all did. And I hope that we see these meetings return to some form of normalcy. I think a lot of what's happening is there's some really charged issues that are in front of the town right now. A lot of them are stemming from national issues that really don't have anything to do with municipal government. That, you know, really our job here, I don't know if Al Donardo is still online, but you know, Al often says, like, we're here to keep the lights on. We're here to fix roads. We're here to manage the schools. We're here to create public safety. But you know, a lot of these national issues are seeping down, and it's not just happening in Plymouth. I work all across New England. It's happening everywhere. And I think it's creating a lot of division among people who are supposed to be working in a neighborly fashion. So we wanted to reaffirm those. We wanted to remind people that this is something that has been adopted as policy for the entire town by the select board. And we hope that it will tamp down some of that negative behavior.
Real appreciate that. Thank you, David. Pat, did you have a question?
I do. It's more a statement. I'd like to propose that at a future Committee of Precinct Chairs meeting that we adopt the guidelines.
I will ask the admin to put that on a future agenda.
Thank you.
Which I will not manage. Thank you, Pat. Did you have something?
Thanks, Dave. I was just wondering whether or not the guiding principles have been sent to all town meeting members or just to chairs to all town meeting members. Thanks, Kristen.
Anybody else have a question, comment? Oh, yes.
Some years ago, the Committee of Precinct Chairs established a list of guiding principles that used to be displayed at every town meeting. And they were unanimously adopted by the Committee of Precinct Chairs. So I'm sure somebody has a copy of them. And they go along, they're synchronized to the select boards, but these were ones that we established, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I do remember that. It might be in the handbook. We'll have to look it up. Thank you.
We should do that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I think it's important to note that these guidelines aren't meant to tamp down passionate debate. They're really meant to remind people that, like, we're talking to our neighbors when we're having these discussions. So, you know, there are folks in this room that I have very strong philosophical differences with, but I can still sit down with and, you know, have a nice conversation over dinner or a drink, and we can have honest disagreements, but still remain collegial in our work together.
If only we get the nation to do that.
Yeah. No.
Thank you, Mr. Golden.
Can only do what I can. Thanks, folks.
All right. On that, I would announce that there is an open meeting law training on March 26th, right here at the Great Hall at 6 p.m. Is there any other new business? Go ahead.
Thank you, Russell. I am the representative of this body, the Committee of Precinct Chairs, on the Master Plan Committee. Next month, the Master Plan Committee will have its last meeting before the document that's been worked on over the past couple of years will be I'm not sure that we would vote on it, but it will be declared done and submitted to the planning board for adoption. Right, exactly. You can do that. So I would ask that that we, as a committee, take a look at the plan. It's online. I think it's a good plan. I think that the consultants were great. I think they were really good. They had some number of events and listening sessions over the 2 years that we met, and I thought that they listened really well, and that the plan actually has a pretty good take on the current state of the town. I have some reservations of my own that I'll share, but I would say please read this because it's a good plan, and I would like it if we could maybe take up some issues, and you might have some suggestions. I'd also point out that Holtec, 1,600 acres, has a separate plan that's funded by federal dollars, and that completed as well. And the let me back up 1 second. So the last chapter of our plan is the implementation task list. What that means is that we've set some number of goals that that we're going to be working against over the course of the next years, and that chapter lists those goals succinctly, and you'll get a good idea of what the plan's about by just going through that chapter. Likewise, the Holtec plan also has a list of suggestions that probably ought to be incorporated in our plan, in the comprehensive plan. But you know, if you get a chance, you should try to take a glance at that too. So please do that. We're going to be living with this plan for the next 10 years, and it's an important piece of work that will have impact on policy in the town and how the town administration works. and how we all work and play and all of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other new business? Any old business? Oh, sorry. We're going to have public comment in a minute if this is public comment. If this is public comment,
It's a public request.
we're going to have public comment in a minute, if you could wait
I
for
just
that.
would, of Joe, I would like to ask that somewhere it be published where we can look up this master plan, where it is on the town website, because I spend a lot of time looking on the town website
Yeah.
without finding things.
So the consultants have it on, I mean, there are clues on the town website. This is how the town website works, you know. It gives you little, breadcrumbs. And where the plan is located, really in its fullness and great wisdom, is on the Stantec. Stantec, Stantec, and they are the consultants. And they had a communications person who could actually, make the best use of web tools and interactive websites, as well as create the documents that you can download and examine at your leisure. So.
Thank you. Okay, any other old business? Before I move on to public comment, Al Donardo has asked to speak.
Mr. Chairman, it's Al Gennaro. Can you hear me okay? I sent a statement and I just want to read it very quickly. First of all, yes, all our local stuff should be nonpartisan. I mean, we have a two-party system so that there's an ebb and flow like any marriage. I look at the two-party system like a marriage, and that we give and take on both ends and we come up with the proper answer. My partner and I have those problems as well, just as if a straight marriage is well. But I want to get into this very quickly. I want to start off by sharing that I've had some very helpful discussions with our moderator over the last few weeks. I truly appreciate the open dialogue and perspective of our town procedures, because I believe we have a structural gap to fill. I intend on drafting a bylaw for the fall town meeting. This bylaw would allow for resolutions specifically and only pertaining to Plymouth's land and water resources. I also want to mention I went before the select board this past Tuesday. I appreciate the members voicing their support that day for the points that I had raised on the governor's new nuclear incentive. While no official action was taken that night, they still have an opportunity to do so. I am not here to criticize them. I simply want to point out we have a brief window of opportunity here that requires a clear, official message from our leadership. However, we have much more pressing matters to discuss here tonight. I think we all agree Plymouth should not be spending its time on worldwide resolutions, but that agreement should not shackle us from passing local resolutions that affect our borders. I have written one letter to the editor regarding our long-term fiscal outlook and two other letters the past week specifically on the new nuclear available for the town of Plymouth. I want to explain why our current silence is a risk to us at the moment. This past Monday, March 16th, Governor Healy stood at the Lynch Elementary School in Winchester to sign the Executive Order 654. Her vision was an all-of-the-above approach to targeting 10 gigawatts of new resources, specifically framing wind, solar, and nuclear as the future of the Massachusetts grid. The state is moving, and it is moving very fast. While the state is looking forward, our neighbors are speaking for us. This past Saturday, March 14th, the Duxbury Town Meeting took up Article 22, a resolution for a moratorium on a nuclear construction within the towns of Plymouth. Our neighbors are already using their town meeting to speak on our land while our own voices are currently sidelined. In closing, we cannot afford to be silent bystanders while others decide our fate. We are facing long-term fiscal crisis. I think we all agree with that. And we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to be an energy hub. We need to message the governor right now that Plymouth is open for business. If the current procedures won't let us speak, then we must update them. It is time to reclaim our voice to protect our land, our water, and our future. And just one other, as I said, 10 gigawatts the governor wants. One bucket of that, 2.5 gigs, is potentially nuclear. And some of you that I communicate with, I sent you a 2-page document showing a study of what that meant for the town. Those of you that I communicate with today, many of you. And just
Mr. DiNardo, would you like another minute?
I'll finish up in 30 seconds. The figure I used was just three GE units at the current industrial side. That the governor's going to need 9 of those GE units if she went all nuclear. 3 would take up Plymouth. So by default, I think Plymouth is in the position, and of course, we'll have, this is just a discussion, as I said in my letter. And of course, first on the line will be reconciling what's there now. I think we all agree with that, no matter who we are, that that's first. And there's enough money in this. If you look at my study, you'll see the money that we can leverage their ledger, not the business, their future ledger. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo. I'm recognizing the chair of the select board, Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to monopolize your meeting. You're going to be sicker than you were when I sat on this body of me. I appreciate Mr. DiNardo's efforts towards raising the conversation of the possibility of nuclear power generation in the town of Plymouth. I know that he's very passionate about it, and I'm interested in exploring it further myself. I did say at the select board meeting that although we didn't submit his article to town meeting, that I would explore the possibility of putting a question on the ballot so that we have a broader representation of the community weighing in on the issue. I did submit language to the to town council, and I'm hoping to have an update for my colleagues on the select board this coming Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Is there more town public comment? Sorry.
Good evening, Bill Fornashari. I'll try to be incredibly brief. I am the new chair of the new Historic Commission that was established in the town in January. We differ from the Historic District Commission that we're looking at all the other fabric beyond what's in the district itself. We've hit the ground running, but one of the things that's first happened to us is we had some incredibly impassioned residents coming for us to talk about Article 18, Item A33, which is lighting and irrigation on the town training green. Just so that you know, the town training green is a historic Olmsted park. It's virtually untouched since it was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted in the 1800s. The park, like I said, remains almost in its existing condition, and the commission as a board is not in favor of the lighting that's going to be proposed for the park. There's no precedent for it. It's never had lighting within the park borders, and we hope that you take that to town meeting and hope to save some money by not passing this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fronchari. Any questions,
Bill,
Mr. Fronachar?
What about the irrigation
Through the chair.
proposal?
The board had no problem with the irrigation.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
How's those hearing aids working? Whoop, sorry.
This might be unrelated, and I don't want to confuse the two topics, but earlier when we looked at an earlier article, Article 20, it had a line item in Article 20 for $100,000 payment for that same training green for lighting. So I'm wondering why is that $100,000 being taken out of that visitation fund? Anyone have an explanation of
I
that
see-
$100,000
I see a member
stipend?
of the public who's able to answer that question.
That $100,000 was for walkway / lighting. It could be used for either, and I believe Nick is using it for the walkways.
So there's no lighting component in the park at this time?
Nothing now because we removed that last time.
Right, but I'm just wondering, how long has that been a stipend in that Article 20? Is that yearly? Because those are yearly reoccurring things. They pay $40,000 for the parade, $70,000 for the Thanksgiving parade. It's in our paperwork. I'll look into it. I mean, it might not have anything to do with this particular, but it caught my eye tonight, and I didn't want to bring it up and confuse it like I just did now. So let me get my facts straight, and I'll come back with that at a later meeting. Thank you.
If I may?
Mr. Furnichari, yes, Mr. Stone.
Yeah, Ken Stone, Vice Chair, Precinct 16. I just wanted to follow up on some of the things that Bill said and on the training green again. Last time I was here, after I made my comments, it was stated that if money wasn't spent on the lighting green, it would not meet ADA requirements, and a lack of lighting would lead to a damaging lawsuit against the town if somebody falls while walking on the paths. Regarding the ADA, that caused me some concern, so I contacted the Mass Office of Disabilities, sent them an email regarding whether lighting would be required on the training green by ADA regulation. They do ask when you send in a request like that, what's the location, so I provided them with that. And Mr. Ralph Tachico from the Mass Office of Disabilities got back to me, and I'm going to quote what he had to say. Under both the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, which is the state code for accessibility in the ADA guidelines, there are no regulations for lighting. So there is no requirement for that, I'm quoting him. For ADA or state or federal ADA regulations, there are none. So so the lights would not have to be put in under ADA regulations. I have his phone number if anybody wants to contact him. Regarding the idea of somebody slipping and falling in a suit, and that being a damaging one, I believe the appropriate Mass General law that speaks to a citizen's right to sue a municipality for an injury on a walkway is Title 14, Chapter 84, Section 15. It says that a citizen can sue a municipality if injured, and I'm quoting, by reason of a defect or want of repair. And the example they give is a loose railing. So the issue is a known structural defect. The lack of lighting must generally be coupled with a physical defect like a deep hole or broken concrete, uneven walkways, that the darkness has hidden rather than just a dark sidewalk. We left in money in the fall for repairing all the walkways and the stairs, and therefore we believe that there would be no clear avenue for such a negligence claim given that Chapter 84. Along those lines, if lighting was such a potential liability, then obviously every sidewalk throughout Plymouth would require lamps, which obviously is not the case. That would include the existing sidewalks on North and South Green Street, which bracket the training green, as well as all of the small streets up on the hill behind the green, such as Franklin, Jefferson, Robinson, Sagamore. None of those have lighting on those, very narrow sidewalks, much steeper streets. Finally, the state puts a cap on how much somebody can actually sue for this kind of injury, and that cap for a defect in a public way, sidewalk, or roadway is $5,000, which an insurance company considers a nuisance claim. And I know that because I and my wife owned income property in years past, kept them very well maintained. We only had one incident of a claim with a person who was already moving out. It was settled by my insurance company as a nuisance claim because it wasn't worth fighting, and my insurance rates don't go up because they recognize that's part of the nature of doing business. So I just wanted to clarify those things.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Joe.
Thank you, Wrestling. There was a time when I agreed with Ken.
There's a time when
But-
you agreed with everything.
As, you know, as I look at this as an issue, I think in terms of how that park gets used. So usage creates demand, and I think of that park as an extension of the historic district. And I think, well, what would Olmsted do today if Olmsted had that park and wanted it used by both the neighbors and by tourists? So, you know, just in terms of marketing, I think that can be an asset. I think that lighting might help it create demand for more use. So that's another way to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Yep, sorry.
Dale Weber, Precinct 3. We originally were very involved in a lot of in-kind donations to improving the training green, including cash donations, which the town had agreed to match us if we needed $20,000, and they said, if you can raise half of that, we'll match that. So through the efforts of prior chairman Jerry Sirico and his fundraising activities, we were able to raise the $10,000. So we have an investment as neighbors in that park. We're not asking for a Taj Mahal down there. We're asking for just some basic stuff. Mr. Stone had written a letter to the Independent recently quoting that Coles Hill doesn't have irrigation. Why should the green? Well, Coles Hill does have irrigation. It's just not utilized when everybody sees it. But there is a system down there, and you can check with DCR, and, you know, whether it's functioning at the moment, I can't speak to that, but I know it was installed. And I know that back in the day, before I became a public employee, I used to, once a week, mow Coles Hill. So I understand Coles Hill and the need to preserve it. So what I'm saying is, all we're looking for is some basic stuff. Has the price increased through budget assumptions and estimates? Yes. And I can't help that. There is a cost to doing business nowadays. It is what it is. Voters can vote how they want at town meeting. This is just a request from neighbors. There will be some neighbors, if they get an opportunity from the moderator to speak, that want to chime in on this for various reasons. And the debate continues. So thank you.
At the interest of not turning in this into a debate, if you would like to have a quick comment, that's fine, but
Very quick.
it's not a debate.
Yeah, and Mr. Weber was correct. I was incorrect about the Coles Hill. I did, though, check with Jessica Rowcroft, who is the Senior Planner for Historic Landscapes, Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation. She's in charge of the restoration of the National Monument, which they're spending $1 million for, doing walkways, are not putting in irrigation. I did ask her about the irrigation system on the hill, and this is what she said. She said, the system is currently operated on a need-to-use basis. The hill is heavily used for public viewing in all our major events throughout the year, including the televised Channel 5's Thanksgiving Day Parade. The last few years, we have limited our water usage to mostly cleanup from these hosting of events and have not needed to routinely run the irrigation. I don't think we need to spend money on something that's not routinely used.
All right, thank you. Unless there's any other public comment,
Could I make a motion to adjourn?
I hear a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I hear a second. Thank you, everybody. Our next meeting is on April 16th
Okay.
at 7 p.m. Thank you.